Chapter 22:14. As soon as Zhou Yiran started crying, Lan Su glared fiercely at Adam. Then, she took the little cutie Zhou Yiran from Adam's arms. She even handed the mala soup to Adam so that he could help her get it. In the end, the bowl of spicy soup was in Adam's hands and he had to feed Lan Su. Qing Yu and Yun Yi were considered a passionate couple. The way they interacted with each other was no different from a normal couple. The only difference was that Qing Yu would not act coquettishly and would use poison the moment she attacked. Mo Sen, on the other hand, was very serious. He brought Rockberry around and did not do anything shameful. Luo Mei was also a young lady from a wealthy family. She blushed and followed Mo Sen all the way. At the same time, in Country R, Sacred Hot Spring Hotel. Ever since Yiling left home to travel with Lin Wei would bring her around the world from time to time from an Han group. Sometimes, Lin Wei would bring Yiling along to deal with an Han group's matters. Today, Lin Wei brought her to Country R for a vacation after dealing with an Han group's matters. Country R was one of the most typical volcanic countries in the world. Hence, there were many hot springs produced by geothermal energy. There were more than 3,000 hot springs with accommodation, and this number was constantly increasing. Hot springs had become an indispensable part of Country R's life. Therefore, Country R's hot springs were very famous. At the same time, Yiling was soaking in a hot spring hotel in Country R. Lin Wei had booked all the hot springs in this hotel, so inside and outside, even the hotel owner was nowhere to be seen. Yiling was soaking in the open-air hot spring, soaking her mouth in the hot spring as her imagination ran wild. Ever since her mother, Ji Qin, said that she wanted her to leave Lin Wei's side and Lin Wei took her in a fit of anger, Lin Wei did not touch her even after Yiling and Lin Wei had been out for so long. When they came out together and stayed in the hotel, Lin Wei asked for two rooms next to each other. He did not even stay in the same room, let alone any other intimate actions. Love came too quickly. Yiling realized that she had unknowingly fallen in love with Lin Wei. Hence, Yiling really hoped that something would happen now. Lin Wei was currently in the hot spring next to Yiling's. There were only a few large rocks in the middle, and there was nothing else. The surroundings were very quiet because the guests and even the owner of the restaurant had been driven away by Lin Wei. Yiling felt that she had to breathe a little harder. Even Lin Wei, who was next door, could hear her. Therefore, Yiling subconsciously lowered her breathing. About 10 minutes later, Yiling stood up from the hot spring. He had soaked in the water for long enough. It was time to go back. However, as soon as Yiling stood up, she slipped and fell into the hot spring because she was still thinking about something. Ah! The moment before her entire body was buried in the hot spring, Yiling involuntarily screamed in fright. With that, Yiling's entire body slid into the hot spring that was as high as a person's chest. Not long after the scream, before Yiling tried to stand up, she saw someone enter the hot spring and pull her out. Yiling had a false alarm. She almost became the first person to choke to death in the not-so-deep hot spring. By the time Yiling regained her senses, she was already naked in Lin Wei's arms. Similarly, he was also naked. Yiling was shocked. She was so scared that she quickly pushed Lin Wei. "I'm fine, but I'm not." Lin Wei still spoke in his deep male voice. When these words rang out, across the water, Yiling could even feel a certain part of Lin Wei's body swelling. However, in the next second, Lin Wei picked up Yiling and walked out of the hot spring with the advantage of his long legs. Then, he picked up the bathrobe and draped it over the two of them before walking towards the hotel room. "Then let's have a baby, eh?" Chapter 22:17. The sweeping auntie stood further away, so she could only see two dark figures standing under the bridge. As Yun Jian was pressed against the wall under the bridge, a ray of light shone on Yun Jian's head from not far away. She could see that she was a teenage girl with delicate skin. Ce had one hand behind Yun Jian's head as a pillow. Ce was afraid that the kiss would be too intense. He didn't want Yun Jian's head to be rubbed against the wall under the bridge, so he placed his hand there as a pillow. However, from the sweeping auntie's perspective, it looked like Yunjian was being forced by Ce to be raped under the bridge. Especially since Ce was standing in a blind spot, the sweeping auntie thought that it was a boorish man pressing down on Yunjian. That was why she cried out in surprise. Yunjian was a teenage girl, yet she was being molested by such a wretched man. Did she still want to get married? The sweeping auntie yelled almost instantly. She gathered many people around her and rushed to the bottom of the bridge. At that moment, Ce's slender fingers were stroking Yunjian's hair. His sharp black eyes were staring at Yunjian. He only had eyes for her. The sweeping auntie quickly gathered a large group of people and rushed to the bottom of the bridge with brooms and mops. Some people wanted to rush up and beat Ce up to save Yunjian from Ce. A torchlight shone down and shone on Yunjian and Ce. At that moment, everyone who thought that Yunjian was being bullied by the boorish man was stunned. This. Even the sweeping auntie was stunned. Her face was filled with disbelief. Was this a young couple flirting with each other? She originally thought that the man was a wretched man, but upon closer inspection, she realized that the man was really handsome. This was a handsome man and a beautiful woman. In the end, the cleaning lady and her group left the scene awkwardly. They all tacitly agreed not to say anything. It was Yunjian's first time encountering something like this. She tugged at the corner of her lips, looking awkward as well. Ce, on the other hand, had a contented look on his face as he held her little hand and found Xiao Yunju and the others. Then, they headed back home. At this time, Qin Yu's dishes were already on the table. Seeing Ce and Yunjian coming back, Qin Yu waved to Ce and Yunjian, saying, "Wash your hands, it's time to eat." By the way, why haven't they come back yet? We just separated. They should be back soon, Yunjian replied. The dishes will get cold later. Xiao Jian, call them one by one to urge them. Qin Yu nodded and said as she placed the bowls and chopsticks on the table. Just as Yunjian was about to take out her phone, Yunyi, Qin Yu, and Adam had all come back. At this time, everyone was sitting around the table and eating. Qin Yu cooked a sumptuous feast tonight as a celebration of New Year's Day. New Year's Day was considered a small new year. Although Lunar New Year had yet to arrive and Country Z's official New Year's Day had yet to arrive, people in Western countries had already started celebrating. At the dining table, Xiao Yunju, Duanli, and Duanya were competing to see who could eat the fastest and the most. Lan Su, on the other hand, was helping Zhou Yiran, who was eating while picking up the rice grains that accidentally stuck to his face and feeding him with a spoon from time to time. Adam, who was beside them, picked up his chopsticks to feed himself intermittently, but his eyes were glued to Lan Su and Zhou Yiran. He looked like he wished he could become Zhou Yiran and snuggle in Lan Su's arms. "Mommy, I want to eat that. Prawns. Mommy, feed me. Zhou Yiran waved his hands and started to act shamelessly. Okay. Hearing this, Lan Su reached out and picked up a big prawn. She peeled off the shell with her clean hands and fed it to Zhou Yiran. Zhou Yiran's big eyes narrowed into slits as he ate, his gaze filled with envy. "Mommy's the best." Zhou Yiran hugged Lan Su happily and rubbed his head against Lan Su's chest. "Where are you going, you brat? Do you believe that I'll make you scram out to pick up trash?" Seeing this, Adam, who had been watching from the side, finally couldn't hold it in anymore and stood up to roar at Zhou Yiran. With this roar, Zhou Yiran was so scared that he leaned even closer to Lan Su. He even stuck close to Lan Su's chest and looked at Adam with a guarded expression. "Daddy's strange again. Mommy's strange again. Woo-woo. I'm so scared, woo-woo. What are you doing? Are you crazy? If you go crazy again, I'll make you sleep on the floor tonight." Lan Su glared fiercely at Adam, then coaxed the pitiful Zhou Yiran in her arms. Everyone saw that Zhou Yiran had a look of success on his face. He cupped the side of his mother Lan Su's face and smacked his lips. "Mommy's the best." Seeing this scene, Adam was once again enraged. This brat, sooner or later I'll stuff him back into his mother's womb. Seeing this scene, Siyi's eyes darkened. He lowered his head slightly and suddenly whispered into Yunjian's ear in a voice that only the two of them could hear. I won't have children for the time being. Yunjian, who suddenly heard this, raised her eyes and was stunned. What kind of indescribable thing did he think of just now? However, before Yunjian could finish thinking, Adam suddenly scratched his head as if he had thought of something. He changed his mood and said, Oh right, I just heard something at the market. I'll tell you Lele, haha. Please remember the domain name of this book. Mobile version of reading website. Chapter 22:18. Page 1/1. Adam did not stop talking as if he was trying to understand the anger he felt from Zhouyiran. Instead, he started talking even more exaggeratedly. I heard that a cleaning auntie saw them and thought that a young lady was being raped by a perverted man. She quickly brought a group of people to save her. Who would have thought that it was a young couple, haha. I heard that the young couple was not bad looking. They actually had sex under the bridge where so many people could pass by. I heard that someone even saw them taking off their clothes. Adam was really shooting his mouth off. However, the children present did not understand what he was saying. Xiao Yunju and the other two only cared about eating faster, so Adam shooting his mouth off was not a big deal. However, the person that Adam was shooting his mouth off to was, Adam, from tomorrow onwards, go complete the organization's 3S level training in the Amazon forest. You're not allowed to come back until you're done. Before Adam could finish joking around, Siyi's words suddenly rang out. Adam's mischievous smile instantly froze. He stared blankly at Siyi and stopped what he was saying. Huh? Young master, why? Why would he be sent to complete the organization's 3S level training in the Amazon forest? One had to know that even Lin Wei had to spend 2 months to complete the most difficult 3S level special training in the organization. Him? Ha! That would take at least half a year to complete. Even if he was faster, he would still need 5 months. No, young master, why did you send me to the Amazon forest to complete the organization's 3S level of difficulty special training for no reason? What did I do? The young couple that we were talking about wasn't you and young master. Just as Adam spoke up to this point, he suddenly stopped. Thinking back to what he said just now, CE suddenly looked angry. Could it be, the couple having sex under the bridge, could it be? Adam was not stupid and immediately thought of this. He suddenly stopped and looked up at CE. Cough cough cough. Young master, that. I didn't say anything, so please don't send me to that damned Amazon forest. Otherwise, Mo-san will miss me so much that he won't be able to eat or sleep peacefully, right Mo-san? Adam squeezed his eyebrows at Mo-san, looking like he was asking Mo-san for help. Unexpectedly, Mo-san calmly responded, it has nothing to do with me. Adam. F***CK, how can there be such a scam? Although CE didn't really send Adam to the Amazon forest in the end, Adam fought with Zhouyiran for Lan Su. In the end, not only did Zhouyiran scratch his handsome face with his long fingernails, he was also punished by Lan Su to sleep on the floor. He couldn't sleep the entire night. Holy Land Hot Spring Hotel in Country R. It was not until the wee hours of the morning that Yi Ling, who had been released by Lin Wei, nestled in the warm blanket. The sound of running water came from the bathroom. Lin Wei was taking a shower. Although this was not their first time, Yi Ling still buried herself in the blanket shyly, not daring to raise her head. Do you want to take a shower? 3 minutes later, the sound of running water in the bathroom stopped. Yi Ling then heard a mellow voice from above the white blanket that covered her head. Needless to say, it was definitely him. Yi Ling nodded carefully and got up. Just as she was about to put on her clothes, Lin Wei grabbed her hand and pulled her out of the blanket. Yi Ling was so embarrassed that she wanted to find something to cover herself with. However, when she raised her head, she saw Lin Wei staring at her. She wanted to pull her hand away from Lin Wei's hand and said weakly, I'll do it myself, take a shower later. Just as Yi Ling finished speaking, Lin Wei looked at her and suddenly said this. After he finished speaking, before Yi Ling could react to what Lin Wei meant, he had already used his height advantage and strength advantage to push her towards the edge of the bed. Translator, Atlas Studios Editor, Atlas Studios. Chapter 22:19. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor, Endless Fantasy Translation Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor, Endless Fantasy Translation Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor, Endless Fantasy Translation. Yi Ling had sex with Lin Wei 7 times in one night. Once the 2-day New Year's Day holiday was over, it was the 2nd day of the holiday. On the 3rd day of the holiday, most people had already returned to their normal lives. Other than elementary school, junior high and high school students would return to school for self-study on the 3rd day of the holiday. The university holidays were not over yet, but classes would start immediately after New Year's Day. Most university students came from all over the country and would only go home during the short break. Classes would start 3 days after New Year's Day, and most students would return to school on the 3rd day of the holiday. Unlike junior high and high school, university students spent most of their time in their dorms, so it did not matter if they went to school or not. Other than winter and summer vacations, it was fine even if one did not go home during the weekend or short break. The dorm was home. On the 3rd day of New Year's Day, Yun Jian rushed back to River City University of Electronic Science and Technology of China from Longmen City early in the morning. Today was not only the 3rd day of the holiday but also the day when Rongyao Company sent out invitations to the big shots from all over the world for a gathering in River City. It was also the time for Yun Jian to eradicate Reverse Emperor once and for all. CE returned to Anhun after confirming that Yun Jian could handle Reverse Emperor alone. He knew that his Xiao Jian did not want to rely on anyone unless it was absolutely necessary. It was not that she did not trust him but Yun Jian's confidence. Just as she returned to the dorm, she caught a whiff of cigarette smoke. It was Miao Li and Shi Xiujuan who were smoking and making the dorm smoky. Both of them frowned when they saw Yun Jian coming in. Once they thought of Song Yu and Mo Lianhua going against Yun Jian, Miao Li and Shi Xiujuan extinguished their cigarettes quickly and opened the windows to get some fresh air, not daring to smoke anymore. There was no doubt that the current Yun Jian was even scarier than a smoking addict in their eyes. Fortunately, Yun Jian placed her belongings in the dormitory, turned around, and walked out of the door. Seeing this, Miao Li and Shi Xiujuan heaved a sigh of relief. After leaving the dorm, Yun Jian met up with Gue Yan and Gue Yan, who had been staying in Rivertown for 3 months, at a coffee shop. Among the 3 leaders of the Kosha mercenaries, Diani, the leader of the intelligence team, had already listened to Yun Jian and returned to the Kosha mercenaries 3 months ago to await orders. As for the leader of the assassination team, Ghost Flame, and the leader of the investigation team, Ghost Lien, they stayed in Jianghu City for 3 months. The 3 of them met at a coffee shop and ordered 3 cups of coffee. Yun Jian sat on one side while Gue Yan and Gue Lien sat opposite Yun Jian. The 3 of them sat facing each other. Sister Jian. Gue Yan and Gue Lien called out to Yun Jian. And Yun Jian nodded and asked, Gue Yan, are all the members of the assassination team here except for one team who's stronger? They're here, waiting for orders. Gue Yan lowered his head and nodded at Yun Jian. All right. Gather everyone at the hotel where the banquet is being held tonight. Arrange for snipers to be stationed there. Don't let a single one of them escape. Understood. Gue Yan nodded. Gue Lien, assist Gue Yan from the side. It's up to you whether we can annihilate Reverse Emperor tonight, Yun Jian said and stood up to leave without even touching the coffee in front of her. Gue Yan and Gue Lien heard what Yun Jian said as well. As for Yun Jian, she walked out as if she did not talk to Gue Yan and Gue Lien at all. Tonight was the banquet organized by Rongyao Company for international moguls, businessmen, and politicians to mingle. She, on the other hand, had other plans. Turning a corner, Yun Jian was about to head toward the martial arts club when she bumped into a group of people. Yun Jian was going to sidestep when a surprised female voice rang out. It's you. Yun Jian raised a brow at the voice and looked up, only to meet Jian Ning's eyes. Jian Ning was the girl Yun Jian met on the plane when she came back from Deity Continent. Translator, Henyi Translations Editor, Henyi Translations. Chapter 2220. Page 1/1. Surprising things always came so suddenly. Yun Jian had decided to study at the University of Electronic Science and Technology of China because she had met a girl on the flight back to Longmen City from God Mainland and the hunting school. The girl had said that she wanted to study computer science at the University of Electronic Science and Technology of China. Yun Jian had learned about the University of Electronic Science and Technology of China from the girl. Yun Jian had also come to the University of Electronic Science and Technology of China. Coincidentally, it was a pity that Yun Jian had not met Jian Ning, who had said that she wanted to study at the University of Electronic Science and Technology of China. Perhaps she was not coming again. Yun Jian did not think much of it. She had just turned the corner and exited the cafe when she bumped into Jian Ning again. Yun Jian blinked in surprise but did not say a word. What a coincidence. Why are you in Rivertown too? There were a few boys and girls with Jian Ning, looking like they had come out to play with her. Jian Ning hopped in front of Yun Jian and reached out to hold Yun Jian's hand, looking like she had bumped into an old friend. I'm studying at the University of Electronic Science and Technology of China, Yun Jian said. Jian Ning was stunned for a moment before she was overjoyed. You're studying at the University of Electronic Science and Technology of China too? Haha. That's great. I just came here 2 days ago. I fell a few months ago and stayed at home to recuperate before coming here. I thought I'd never see you again. I didn't expect you to be studying at the University of Electronic Science and Technology of China too. I'm so happy. Jian Ning's joyful expression did not seem to be an act. Jian Ning, this junior is. Just as Jian Ning was about to jump up in excitement from holding Yun Jian's hand, a tall and thin boy with a crew cut standing behind her asked. Hey. I forgot to introduce her in my excitement. She's a friend I met on the flight back to China. It's a pity that I didn't get to exchange phone numbers or something back then. Thankfully, we meet again. She's Yun Jian, heh. Jian Ning said to the boy with a crew cut. She then turned to point at the tall and thin boy with a crew cut who was rather attractive to girls and introduced him to Yun Jian. This is my senior brother, Zhang Xiaoyu. We were in the same high school when we were overseas. We came back to study together and we met again. Jian Ning introduced Zhang Xiaoyu, who nodded at Yun Jian in a friendly manner and said, Hello, junior. Zhang Xiaoyu belonged to the kind of senior who was more gentle, mature and steady. He gave people a sense of security. Let's introduce ourselves. My name is Malefo, not the Maitreya Buddha you're thinking of. I'm cultured. A boy standing next to Zhang Xiaoyu touched his hairless head and smiled righteously. Come on, you're still saying you're not Maitreya. You look just like Maitreya without any hair. But Maitreya is a Buddha, the Supreme One. What about you? You're a fake. Standing next to the boy named Milfo was a girl wearing a cute top and a white pleated skirt. The girl retorted, then looked at Yun Jian with a smile and introduced herself. My name is Zhang Jingjing, Zhang as in new, and Jing as in Jingjing. What's the difference between that and not introducing at all? Milfo glared at Zhang Jingjing. At the same time, Yun Jian was standing in front of the group. After listening to their conversation, she narrowed her eyes with a small smile. Yun Jian. That was the end of the introduction. Just as everyone was talking, a boy ran over from the side. He was obviously with Zhang Xiaoyu and the others. At this moment, the boy ran over and said mysteriously to Jian Ning and the others, I've heard about it. Haha. The multinational Rongyao company is really going to invite all the international big shots to a hotel here today. It's a grand occasion, let's go and take a look. I heard that a lot of international big shots will come. Those international big shots are all the top existences in the world. Top reading site, M. Chapter 2221. Page 1/1. after the boy who suddenly ran back said these words mysteriously, he suddenly looked left and right a few times. Then, he moved in front of the crowd and said mysteriously, "I'm sorry, but I'm sorry, I'm sorry. I heard that not only will the international bigwigs and politicians come, but even some of the international assassins and secret agents, and some legendary assassin organizations will come. Are you sure you don't want to go and have a look? If you don't want to go, I'll go by myself." The boy who ran back halfway was called Qin Dasun. It was a very old-fashioned name, but he looked very cute and was a mischievous boy. The fact that Qin Dasun had such a name proved that his parents were definitely not from the city. That was indeed the case. Qin Dasun was not born into a rich family. He came from a very simple background, and he was a child from the countryside. Jian Ning, Zhang Xiaoyu, Malefo, and Zhang Jingjing all had good family backgrounds. Qin Dasun was the only one who was born in the countryside. However, the reason why the five of them could play together was that they would not look down on Qin Dasun just because of his low status. There was no hierarchy among the five of them. They were all friends, and friends should be honest with each other. "Lulu Dasun, you're still so nosy. Let's not get involved in that kind of thing. Also, if some assassins or secret agents really come, what if we get implicated and die?" Zhang Jingjing said to Qin Dasun with her nickname. Then, she reached out and touched Qin Dashun's head, and said a few words with a smile. "Don't you still have me? Besides, aren't you guys interested? It's an international party. I heard that many people are racking their brains to get an invitation from the Rongyao Company to attend this party. I thought that with your status, it shouldn't be difficult to get an invitation from the Rongyao Company, right? Then, bring me in to have a look and broaden my horizons," Qin Dasun said to the crowd. After he finished speaking, he glanced at Yun Jian. Pausing, Qin Dasun glanced at Yun Jian and asked, "She's my friend. Her name is Yun Jian. Speaking of which, Qin Dasun, you want to go to such a dangerous place and use us as scapegoats? Let's attack together and teach Qin Dasun a lesson." Jian Ning took the opportunity to introduce Qin Dasun. Then, she rolled up her sleeves and looked like she was going to give Qin Dasun a good beating. "Oh, no, no, no. No, no, no. I was wrong." Qin Dasun immediately cowered. He covered his head and hid to the side. Yun Jian, who was standing at the side, blinked. Jian Ning laughed and said to Yun Jian, "He's just like that. Don't mind him." Although Jian Ning and the others liked to tease each other, it was not hard to see that their relationship was very good. After finding a place to have a cup of tea with Jian Ning and the others, and exchanging contact information, Yun Jian left. Yun Jian didn't go back to her dormitory. Instead, she went straight to the martial arts club. As soon as he entered the martial arts club, he saw a girl standing in front of the members. He took a closer look. Wasn't this girl Kai Huiling? Yun Jian narrowed her eyes slightly. She didn't know why Kai Huiling had come back after leaving the martial arts club. At this time, Kai Huiling took out 5 pieces of paper in front of Yun Jian. Then, she showed them in front of everyone. Before she spoke, she glanced at Yun Jian provocatively. "This is an invitation from Rongyao Company. It's the party held by Rongyao Company in Jianghu City tonight. Many international tycoons will come. I have 6 in total. I have 1 for myself and 5 for the others. After all, I used to be in your martial arts club, so I'll give the other 5 to you. Who wants them?" Top reading website, M. Chapter 22-22. When they heard Kai Huiling say that she had an invitation from Rongyao Company in her hand, they knew that she could attend the gala that was going to be held in Jianghu City tonight. Everyone in the martial arts club was in an uproar. Before Yun Jian joined the martial arts club, Kai Huiling was doing well in the martial arts club and was friends with many people. Although what Kai Huiling said before she left the club was unpleasant to hear, she was still an old friend who had been together for a long time. Everyone present had some feelings for Kai Huiling. Now that Kai Huiling had come to the martial arts club and brought 5 invitations to everyone, everyone was excited. Senior Huiling, I want it, I want it. Give me the invitation. I also want an invitation. Let's go and see the scene where Rongyao Company invited the international bigwigs tonight. Can you give me one? Regardless of whether they were boys or girls, after hearing Kai Huiling's words, they all shouted excitedly. Everyone present knew how rare the invitation was for Rongyao Company's gala tonight. It was said that if one wanted to get an invitation from Rongyao Company, one had to be a wealthy person with a net worth of 100 million yuan. There were even people who auctioned the invitation from Rongyao Company. One invitation could be sold at a sky-high price of 100,000 yuan. This 100,000 yuan was just to witness the grand scene. When the news came out, many people were shocked. And the most sensational thing in Jianghu City was the gala where Rongyao Company invited the international bigwigs. As for tonight's gala, there were few people in Jianghu City who didn't want to go. It was something that couldn't be asked for. Now Kai Huiling actually said that she had 6 invitations in her hand. One had to know that even with Mo Buffon's family background, he couldn't get an invitation from Rongyao Company. How did Kai Huiling get it? Feeling everyone's envious and eager eyes, Kai Huiling raised her head proudly and glanced at Yun Jian again. After making a fool of herself in front of Yun Jian at the New Year's gala last time, Kai Huiling had been avoiding Yun Jian these days. After all, it was a very embarrassing thing. Kai Huiling would not appear in front of Yun Jian as long as she made a fool of herself. However, she liked to show off in front of Yun Jian whenever she got something amazing. As a matter of fact, he received 6 invitations from Rongyao Company today and immediately went to the Wushu Club to show off. At that time, Kai Huiling originally thought that she would see envy on Yun Jian's face. However, what Kai Huiling didn't expect was that Yun Jian just carried her small backpack and walked to the side. She put the small backpack on a clean table in the martial arts club without any expression. Kai Huiling's purpose in coming to the Martial Arts Society today was to give Mo Buffon a copy of the Rongyao Company's invitation letter that she received. She wanted Mo Buffon to attend the evening party with her, so as to improve their relationship. Secondly, she wanted to show off in front of Yun Jian. However, seeing that Yun Jian was ignoring her now, Kai Huiling was too lazy to care about the expectant gazes of the members of the Yuan Martial Arts Society. She carefully held her 5 invitations from Rongyao Company and walked in front of Yun Jian. She blocked Yun Jian and said arrogantly, "Hey, don't you want it? This is an invitation letter from Rongyao Company. One is worth thousands of dollars. I have 5 of them here. Plus my own one, there are 6 in total." Seeing Kai Huiling blocking in front of her, Yun Jian narrowed her eyes and said softly, "An invitation letter from Rongyao Company? Yes. It's genuine. People like you will never get an invitation letter from Rongyao Company. I heard that the market price of one invitation letter can be sold for a sky-high price of $100,000. Kai Huiling raised her head proudly and said, "Oh." Yun Jian smiled coldly. Kai Huiling thought that Yun Jian was aware of her prowess, so she glanced at the ceiling again smugly. Just when Kai Huiling thought that Yun Jian would be shocked by her action, the latter took out a stack of 100 invitations from Rong and Yao from her bag and placed them on the table. She looked up and narrowed her eyes as she said, "I'm sorry, Yun Jian, but I'm sorry. Please remember the domain name of this book." Mobile version of reading website. Chapter 22-23. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor, Endless Fantasy Translation, page 1/1. Seeing Kai Huiling standing in front of Yun Jian, everyone in the Martial Arts Society knew what Kai Huiling was trying to do. After all, Kai Huiling left the Martial Arts Society because of Yun Jian. But to everyone's surprise, Kai Huiling took out 6 invitation letters from the Rongyao Company in one go. Everyone's eyes widened in disbelief. Yun Jian, on the other hand, had taken out a stack of invitation cards that was as thick as 100 from her backpack. These invitation letters were sent out in the name of the Rongyao Company to all the big shots in the world. Not everyone could get one. And some people would even spend 100,000 RMB just to get one. Just to get into the party and see the world. Such invitation letters were like a piece of gold in the hands of others. Even if there was only one, they would hold it tightly in their hands. But what about Yunjian? She actually took out 100 invitation letters from her backpack. These invitation letters had the exclusive seal of the Rongyao Company, confirming that they were genuine invitation letters from the Rongyao Company. And Yunjian also said that she had a box of them at home. Just one of these invitation letters would be bought at a sky-high price. Yunjian had a box of them at home? No, no, no. Impossible. How could you have them? These 6 notes in my hand were all obtained by my dad using his connections for 500,000 RMB in exchange for 3 months. How could you possibly have so many? Even if it's someone from the Rongyao Company, it's impossible for them to get so many invitation letters. Kai Huiling, who wanted to show off in front of Yunjian and look at Yunjian with disdain, instantly darkened her face. Her face turned pale and weak. How could she have so many invitation letters? These invitation letters, I'll give them to you. It was then that Yunjian placed the nearly 100 invitations in front of the martial arts club members, looking like she did not care about the invitations that were considered rare treasures to outsiders. Hearing Yunjian's words, everyone in the martial arts society was stunned. In the next second, they rushed up and fought for the invitation letters. One letter was worth a sky-high price. After everyone had divided the invitation letters, they all thanked Yunjian loudly and started discussing. Thank you, President. The president of our martial arts society is indeed different. It's hard to get an invitation letter, but the president has a whole bunch. That's right. It's our honor to have the president as the president of our martial arts society. These words reached Kai Huiling's ears one after another, causing Kai Huiling's expression to change drastically. She originally wanted to prove that Yunjian was inferior to her. Yun was not suitable to be the president of the martial arts society. But in the end, it was exactly the opposite. Most importantly, what Yunjian did just now made Kai Huiling flaunting her invitations in front of the crowd right after she took them out. It was such a foolish thing to do. To have so many invitation letters from Rongyao Company, maybe she slept with a senior executive of Rongyao Company. Yunjian, just you wait. One day, she, Kai Huiling, would make Yunjian get out of the martial arts society. Kai Huiling was so angry that she cursed Yunjian in a low voice. Then she turned around and hurried out of the martial arts society. When she walked to the gate, she accidentally tripped on the threshold and almost fell to the ground. That wretched appearance almost made people laugh out loud. It wasn't until Kai Huiling completely walked out of the martial arts society that Yunjian raised her eyes and narrowed them slightly. Then she glanced at the audience and said indifferently to everyone in the martial arts society, "With this invitation letter, you can enter the party. You can also give the rest of the invitation letters to your relatives and friends. But remember, the party starts at 6:00. You are only allowed to stay for an hour in the middle. You must leave the party at 7:00. Don't ask for the reason. Remember this, or you won't be able to leave after 7:00. Top reading website, M. Chapter 22-24. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor, Endless Fantasy Translation, page 1/1. When the members of the martial arts club heard Yunjian's words, they all nodded in agreement, even though they didn't know what Yunjian meant. Staying for an hour at a party like that is something I've never dreamed of. Don't worry, I'll definitely leave at 7:00. Me too. That's right. President, you don't have to explain. Whatever the president says is what it is. We just have to do as you say. When the members of the martial arts club heard Yunjian's words, they all spoke in unison. In response, Yunjian narrowed her eyes and finally calmed down. The morning passed just like that. The sky in Jianghu city was still as clear as ever, and the streets were still as noisy as ever. But all of this was like the eve of a storm. Yun Jian had just come out of the martial arts club and was walking in the direction of the dormitory building when she suddenly saw a large group of people crowding around her female dormitory building. They were clamoring to enter the female dormitory building. And this group of people had microphones in their hands, pushing and shoving as they tried to squeeze into Yun Jian's female dormitory building. However, they were stopped in front of the female dormitory building's entrance by the dormitory manager and the teachers who had arrived later. There were also a few men carrying imported video cameras filming by the side. Seeing this scene, it was not difficult to guess that the group of men and women who were pushing and shoving to squeeze into the female dormitory building with microphones in their hands were the news reporters of various major media outlets. In Country Z in 2003, news reporters were already popular. But compared to now, the news reporters at that time were interviewing people through cameras or live broadcasts, and the images were far from as clear as now. Most of the cameras were imported from overseas, and the country did not have the technology to manufacture cameras of standard quality. As for news reporters, as long as one was an individual, they knew that their job was to interview people. However, the people they wanted to interview naturally had to be different or stand out from the crowd. Whether it was interviewing a person or an event, this person or event had to be extraordinary. The more eye-catching it was, the better it would be. To put it simply, this meant that wherever there was a strange person or event, these news reporters would rush there. For example, a person was born with 6 fingers, or a person who had lived in a cave for decades and became a savage. These kinds of reports were all dug out by the news reporters. Then, they would describe it a little more exaggeratedly and write an eye-catching headline. Once it was published in the newspaper, the news reporter's income would also be rewarded by the company as a commission. Therefore, these news reporters could be said that in order to get some headlines for the news. Just like now, the translation. The dormitory manager and the dormitory managers, and it was useless even when the dormitory manager and the dormitory manager ants and they were blocked by the dormitory manager and the teachers, it was useless, they were even when the dormitory manager and. I heard that 2 days ago, there was a girl from your school who rushed onto the stage in the middle of her performance at the New Year's Eve party. She did more than 10 somersaults in one breath and shocked everyone. That girl should be staying in this dormitory building, right? Translation. I can translation to can I? This question came from a female reporter. That girl rushed onto the stage in the middle of her New Year's Day performance. Coincidentally, someone brought a camera and recorded the whole process of her rushing onto the stage and somersaulting. Can you let us interview her about how she trained to be so good? I only need 10 minutes. I'll take up 10 minutes of that girl's time. This group of reporters held their microphones and pushed each other, trying to squeeze into the female dormitory building. The grand scene was something that had never happened before in the University of Electronic Science and Technology of China. Regarding this, the students passing by the school couldn't help but stop and look at the scene in front of them, as if they were wondering what had happened here. Our school has the right to protect the personal safety of our students. Please go back. A group of teachers blocked the reporters who wanted to rush into the female dormitory building and said this very solemnly. It turned out that Yun Jian had rushed onto the stage in front of everyone during her New Year's Day performance. She had done more than 10 somersaulting moves that didn't suit her age. Coincidentally, someone had brought a camera from home to record it. In this era, mobile phones couldn't record, and only a few people had cameras. This was because it was a high-end gadget that had to be imported from abroad. After that video was seen by the news media reporters, they all rushed here, wanting to interview Yun Jian. After all, there hadn't been any big news for a long time. Now that they suddenly caught this big news, this group of reporters certainly wouldn't let it go. Yun Jian narrowed her eyes. Naturally, she didn't like to be interviewed. She took a detour and was about to take a detour and climb up the wall from the back of the female dormitory building. Suddenly, someone saw her and pointed at her back as she was about to leave. She. It's that girl. She's the girl who did more than 10 somersaulting in the martial arts performance that night. Top reading website, M. Chapter 22-25. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor, Endless Fantasy Translation, page 1/1. Yun Jian didn't want to cause any trouble, so she left quietly. To some people, being interviewed by reporters was an honor that others couldn't even dream of. But Yun Jian didn't like this kind of empty honor, and she didn't like to expose herself in front of so many people. Who knew that when Yun Jian wanted to climb the wall from the back of the girls' dormitory to her room, she was pointed out and exposed before she could do anything. At this time, the group of reporters who were waiting for Yun Jian to come from the girls' dormitory turned around like zombies who smelled the scent of humans. In the next second, the group of reporters all rushed towards Yun Jian. Even the people who were carrying cameras on their shoulders followed the reporters and ran towards Yun Jian. For a moment, all the attention and cameras were all focused on Yun Jian. Those who didn't know would think that a celebrity had come. It was good to be a celebrity. Being chased by millions of fans would raise their status and be envied by everyone. It was as if they were born to be superior to others. But if one day you really became a public figure and were chased by all the fans to the point that you were like a god, people would want to take off your underwear no matter what color you were wearing. What pinhole camera? Maybe when you were unconsciously changing your clothes, the whole process would be recorded. Although that kind of life was high and mighty, she wouldn't even be able to experience the life of an ordinary person. Her entire body was exposed in front of everyone. This was what it meant to be a celebrity. And Yun Jian didn't like this kind of feeling. Therefore, when these crazy reporters with microphones and cameras chased after her, she frowned slightly. In spite of it, there was no way the reporters would give in for a headline like this. All of them squeezed their way over and did not even care if Yun Jian was willing to do so as they rushed forward with their microphones in hand to ask questions. Hello. May I ask if you're the female student who stood out in the martial arts performance at the University of Electronic Science and Technology of China's New Year's Eve party? It's said that you ended your performance with a dozen somersaults at the end of the martial arts performance and won first place in the school's New Year's Eve party. Then, may I ask how a teenage girl like you managed to practice such skills? An old-fashioned female reporter held the microphone in front of Yun Jian's mouth and used a very coherent and experienced sentence to ask the question. But before this female reporter finished her sentence, she was pushed by another female reporter and then passed the microphone in front of Yun Jian. Hello student, after watching the recording of your somersaults, I would like to ask you a few questions. Excuse me, where did you learn all these skills? May I ask how many years did it take for you to learn them? Can you tell me who is your master? Do you have any plans in the future in the martial arts industry? Also, you were originally a computer science major. Since you've learned such skills, why don't you go to a martial arts academy to further your studies? This group of reporters was like a continuous firing of cannons. The questions that came out of their mouths couldn't stop. This made Yun Jian's brows furrow even more. Although this group of reporters spoke to Yun Jian in a polite tone like, may I ask, and hello, their behavior was extremely disgusting. It was as if they wanted to dig out all 18 generations of Yun Jian's ancestors. Many students from the University of Electronic Science and Technology of China stood around and watched. There was also a group of helpless teachers. But everyone felt that being interviewed by reporters was a matter of high opinion, so Yun Jian should answer these reporters' questions one by one with a smile. But just as everyone thought so, Yun Jian's cold eyes slanted. Two indifferent, simple, and plain words suddenly jumped out of her mouth: move. Top reading website, M. Chapter 22-26. If it were any other girl who was surrounded by so many reporters like a superstar, she would have been smug by now. However, after Yun Jian was surrounded, her cold face was devoid of any color. Contrary to what everyone thought, she only said those two words in an extremely flat tone. Moreover, those two words, which were so simple that it made people's expressions freeze, gave everyone present a hair-raising illusion for some reason. All the reporters, including the students from the University of Electronic Science and Technology of China who were passing by, as well as the dormitory manager and the teachers who had rushed over, were all stunned on the spot. They looked at Yun Jian in disbelief. They were not surprised by the words that Yun Jian said, but by Yun Jian's aura. Those simple words, which were not shouted, spread throughout the entire place. Everyone's expressions froze. Even the reporters who wanted to continue the interview were suddenly stuck in their throats, unable to say another word. The entire place was silent for a full 10 seconds. Regardless of whether it was the reporters, the man with the camera, the teachers, or the students from the University of Electronic Science and Technology of China who were passing by, they were all stunned for a full 10 seconds. However, after 10 seconds, when everyone came to their senses, Yun Jian was already standing more than 10 meters away, on the high steps of the female dormitory building, looking down at everyone. Everyone did not even know when Yun Jian had escaped from the group of reporters who had surrounded her. At that moment, Yun Jian was standing on the high steps of the female dormitory building. Before she lifted her foot to step into the female dormitory building, she turned around and squinted her eyes at the reporters who were standing at the bottom of the steps, wanting to interview her. Before she returned to the female dormitory building, she raised her red arc and coldly left a sentence, "No comment. If you ask again, it won't be resolved so easily." After she finished speaking, she turned around and lightly swung her ponytail that reached her waist, outlining her perfect and flawless back view with a wave of elegance. This scene made everyone present feel a sense of awe from the bottom of their hearts. So beautiful. It was noon now. The winter sun shone warmly, casting a layer of yellowish glow on Yun Jian. The glow accentuated the swaying curve of her ponytail that reached her waist after she turned around, accentuating the beauty of her swaying ponytail. The men and women present couldn't help but hold their breaths. But what exactly did she mean by those words? "If I ask again, it won't be so simple to resolve?" All the reporters stood where they were, trying to figure out the meaning of Yun Jian's words. However, just when the reporters didn't know what Yun Jian meant by her words and wanted to catch up with Yun Jian and continue to pester her. "Look! My God!" someone suddenly exclaimed in surprise. Then, everyone turned to look in the direction the man had indicated. However, the cameras in the hands of the cameramen who had been chasing after Yun Jian with a few cameras suddenly popped and were all scrapped in front of everyone. This scene caused the hearts of everyone present to panic. There was even a cameraman who widened his eyes in horror and exclaimed, "It's her. It must be her. She just walked past us. She broke our cameras." But in such a short period of time, when she walked past us, she didn't even reach out her hand. How did he manage to destroy so many cameras without anyone noticing? Was she really a young girl in her teens? Thinking of this, everyone's hearts suddenly trembled. Then, they thought of the sentence Yun Jian left behind. Please remember the domain name of this book. Mobile version of reading website. Chapter 22-27. Translator, Henyi Translations Editor, Henyi Translations the Chairman, she, personally gave it to you. The group of reporters was terrified, so they quickly left. God, that young lady was too scary. She just walked past a few cameramen and didn't even reach out her hand, but those cameras were destroyed right in front of everyone's eyes. This scene was absolutely unimaginable to everyone present. Therefore, combined with the words that Yun Jian left just now, everyone shook their heads fiercely and quickly left the scene at lightning speed. What a joke. The young lady destroyed the camera just now, but on second thought, since she had the ability to destroy the camera silently, what if the camera was replaced with a camera head? After a while, the group of people ran away like a wisp of smoke. The few teachers present looked at the scene in front of them with dumbfounded expressions. They had blocked the group of reporters for so long just now, but they couldn't persuade this group of stubborn reporters to leave no matter how hard they tried. They said that they would only leave after they found the news headlines. In the end, the main character, Yun Jian, had only spoken a few words and moved her hands when she appeared. The group of reporters was scared out of their wits. Those cameramen didn't even dare to ask Yun Jian for compensation for the camera. Escaping was more important. The few teachers twitched the corners of their mouths and finally left. Yun Jian returned to the dormitory and slept soundly for the whole afternoon. At 5:00, she carried the school bag that she always carried with her and left the dormitory. This time, the party held by Rongyao Company was quite grand, and it was the venue of the party. And the party had to wear evening gowns. Yun Jian met up with the people from the martial arts club, then changed into a black short gown in a relatively ordinary shop and combed her hair simply. The people from the martial arts club also dressed up carefully and changed into evening gowns. After the group of people tidied up, they took a taxi to the venue of the party, Longting Building. Longting Building was a 5-star hotel, and it also decorated the venue of the party. The scene was very grand, so grand that just standing at the entrance of Longting Building could feel the grand occasion inside. Wow, it's so spectacular. Hua Ling from the martial arts club put her hand on her face and looked at the scene in front of her. She was so excited that she almost screamed. Oh my God. We're not dreaming, right? We can really go inside today. Another girl from the martial arts club said in a daze as she looked at the staff member who was checking and accepting the invitation letters at the gate in the distance. Just as the girl finished speaking, Yun Jian's voice could be heard, "Let's go." At that time, Yun Jian was wearing a short black evening gown. Only her shoulders were exposed from the back. Her perfect figure was matched with the beautiful black evening gown. The back of her shoulder was faintly exposed, and one could even see her stunning collarbone. Needless to say, she could only be described as beautiful. Ah! I'm coming. Even Hua Ling from the martial arts club paused for 2 seconds when she saw Yun Jian's figure. Then, she quickly chased after her. Just as she was about to reach the staff member, Yun Jian turned around. She lowered her voice and spoke to Mo Bufan and the other members of the martial arts club. You can walk around after entering the venue. Remember to leave on time at 7 o'clock. Otherwise, you'll have to bear the consequences. After speaking, Yun Jian handed the invitation letter in her hand to the staff member who checked the authenticity of the invitation letter and stopped the guests who did not have an invitation letter from entering the venue. When the male staff member saw that it was a group of people dressed as students, he only glanced at Yun Jian and the others contemptuously. Then, he lazily took the invitation letter from Yun Jian. The male staff member was from the Rongyao Company. This could be seen from the badge on the male staff member's neck. It was normal for some of the members of the Rongyao Company to be rather high and mighty. After all, to be able to work in the Rongyao Company was something that would make a group of people jealous to death. Even if they were to be a floor sweeper in the Rongyao Company, it would be easy for them to earn 500,000 yuan a year. But who knew that after the male staff member lazily took the invitation letter and looked at it lazily, he suddenly straightened his eyes and stared at the invitation letter a few more times. After confirming that there was no mistake, he exclaimed to Yun Jian in front of Mo Bufan and all the other members of the martial arts club present. This invitation letter has the exclusive seal of the chairman of the Rongyao Company. Could it be that you know the chairman of the Rongyao Company? The invitation letter was personally given to you by the chairman of the Rongyao Company. P.S. That's all for today. Good night, everyone. End of this chapter. Chapter 22-28. After hearing what the male staff member said, everyone in the martial arts club was stunned. The invitation letter in Yun Jian's hand had the exclusive seal of the chairman of Rongyao Company. And the invitation letters in their hands were all from Yun Jian. Then, everyone in the martial arts club reacted in shock. At that time, they all looked down at the invitation letter in their hands that had not been handed to the male staff member. They saw that there were 2 seals engraved on the upper right corner of the invitation letter that had not been handed to the male staff member. One was the exclusive seal of Rongyao Company, and the other was the exclusive seal of the chairman of Rongyao Company. As everyone knew, if the invitation letters sent by Rongyao Company had the exclusive seal of the chairman of Rongyao Company engraved on the upper right corner, it meant that these invitations were sent in the name of the chairman of Rongyao Company. Usually, people who held such invitation letters engraved with the chairman of Rongyao Company's seal were special guests of this party. The internal staff of Rongyao Company should be treated specially. The male staff member had been checking and accepting the invitation letters for half an hour, but he had not met anyone who had the exclusive seal of the chairman of Rongyao Company on the upper right corner of the invitation letter. He originally thought that people who could have such an honor would be followed by a large group of bodyguards or brothers from the black market. All of them were important figures in the world. Therefore, the male staff member was especially respectful to the people who had entered before, especially the middle-aged man. However, he had not seen anyone with the exclusive seal of the chairman of Rongyao Company engraved on the upper right corner of the invitation letter before. Today, he saw it on the invitation letter given by a teenage girl. That was why the male staff member asked such a question. However, the male staff member who asked the question regretted it immediately. The guests who came here were all important figures. The person who could give an invitation letter with the seal of the chairman of Rongyao Company was undoubtedly an important figure. He was just a staff member. How could he ask such a question? Thinking of this, the male staff member immediately lowered his head and nodded to Yun Jian in fear. Then, he handed the invitation letter back to Yun Jian with trembling hands. Please come in. Yun Jian did not reply to the male staff member's question. She took the invitation from the male staff member and walked into the party. Everyone in the martial arts society, including Mo Bufan, was stunned. Obviously, there was another seal on the upper right corner of the invitation that belonged to the chairman of Rongyao Company, which made the members of the martial arts club stunned. However, everyone immediately reacted. Seeing that Yun Jian had already entered the venue, the members of the martial arts club hurriedly handed their invitations to the male staff. After passing them, they all followed Yun Jian's footsteps. Yun Jian, just now. After Mo Bufan caught up with Yun Jian's footsteps, he opened his mouth and wanted to ask her about the Rongyao Company chairman's seal. But Mo Bufan had just opened his mouth when he was interrupted by Yun Jian's indifferent voice. That's why this invitation can be sold for a lot of money. You guys have to enjoy tonight. After speaking, Yun Jian did not explain too much. She interrupted Mo Bufan's words and walked forward. Mo Bufan could see that Yun Jian's reaction was purely because she did not want to answer such questions. He twitched the corner of his mouth and finally followed her without asking anything. At the party venue, as soon as Yun Jian and the members of the martial arts club entered, the members of the martial arts club were attracted by the gorgeous scene in front of them. There were more than 20 long tables in the party venue in front of everyone. These long tables were filled with all kinds of delicious desserts. Zhou Huntao, Hua Ling, and the others had never seen so many types of desserts in their lives. Everything that could be found in dessert shops outside was available here. There were hundreds of types of desserts here that could not be found outside. Moreover, there were many wines placed on the large long tables. Even if one casually pointed at one of the bottles of wine on these long tables, the market price of this bottle of wine would not be less than $100,000. Coupled with the gorgeous decorations in the room. Everyone in the martial arts club took a deep breath. They were shocked by this gorgeous scene that they had never seen before and could not react for a long time. I have to leave for a while. Remember to leave at 7:00 on time. After Yun Jian led everyone in here, she turned her head to look at everyone and said such a sentence. After speaking, she did not look at the members of the martial arts club and immediately walked to the side of the party venue. Everyone in the martial arts club nodded. After a while, a member of the martial arts club pointed suspiciously in the direction of Yun Jian and said, "Huh? Yun Jian is." Please remember the domain name of this book. Mobile version of reading website. Chapter 22-29. It's probably someone the president knows. He's definitely not an ordinary person since he can take out so many invitations at once. It's just that the president likes to keep a low profile and he's given us so much good food, so it's better if we don't ask too much. A girl who had her hands on her cheeks in a daze and looked sideways at the almost 20 long tables with a variety of desserts and delicacies, nearly drooling when she spoke. That's right. We just have to listen to the president and leave the venue at 7:00 sharp. Hearing the girl's words, everyone in the martial arts club agreed unanimously. Then, they quickly gathered together to clean up the delicacies on the long tables that no one touched. Unlike the members of the martial arts club, the international bigwigs were not wolfing down the food as if they had not eaten for hundreds of years. In spite of it, the members of the martial arts club could not care less since it was rare for them to eat so much delicacies. They ate happily. By then, Yun Jian had already walked out of the venue with the voluptuous girl. The voluptuous girl was none other than Alluring Demon, the president of Rongyao Company on behalf of Yun Jian. At this time, the demoness was wearing a bright red lace low-cut evening gown. This bright red lace low-cut evening gown outlined her exquisite and well-proportioned figure. When men saw it, they almost had a nosebleed. Both of them walked out of the venue and came to the garden near the venue. Yun Jian crossed her arms and led Alluring Demon to the garden before turning around to face the latter. Go on as usual tonight. Be careful, don't expose yourself. Okay, Sister Jian. Alluring Witch nodded at that. Yun Jian nodded and turned to head back to the venue. Hey, Yun Jian. You're coming to tonight's party too? Just as Yun Jian was about to head to the venue, a surprised voice rang out. Yun Jian turned and saw 5 people led by Jian Ning. Jian Ning, Zhang Xiaoyu, Malefo, Zhang Jingjing, and Qin Dashun. Seeing Yun Jian, Jian Ning, Zhang Xiaoyu, and the others were obviously stunned. After all, the people who were able to attend this banquet were all of high status. For Yun Jian to be able to come here, it meant that her status was naturally not ordinary. Yun Jian's eyes narrowed slightly when she saw Jian Ning and the others. She nodded subtly. Yes. Upon hearing this, Jian Ning ran over and grabbed Yun Jian's hand. That's great. We happen to be together. Just now, the 5 of us walked around the banquet hall. The surrounding people were all international big shots. We didn't know any of them, so we planned to walk a few rounds in the garden here. We didn't expect to meet you. Yun Jian stared at Jian Ning for 2 seconds, then smiled and said, then let's go together. Then, Yun Jian and Jian Ning walked into the banquet hall together. She had just walked 2 laps around the banquet hall when she saw Kai Huiling, who had failed to show off at the martial arts club last time and had run away after being humiliated. At this time, Kai Huiling was holding the hand of a middle-aged man and walking over. Obviously, this middle-aged man was her father. At this moment, Kai Huiling was wearing a colorful evening dress. It seemed that this dress had been specially designed by a designer. She saw Yun Jian in the distance. Originally, she wanted to go around, but when she saw Jian Ning and the others beside Yun Jian, she was angry and walked over. Hey, look, who is this? The new president of our martial arts club. Huh, what's wrong? You ruined the reporter's kind interview in the morning, and now you have the nerve to appear here? Please remember the domain name of this book. Mobile version of reading website. Chapter 2230. Although news reporters traveled everywhere and would visit wherever there was big news, no matter how much these news reporters loved to travel, the biggest headline of the evening was none other than the gala that had caused a sensation all over the world. Therefore, most of the news reporters who wanted to interview Yun Jian in the morning would come to the gala to continue their interview work. Of course, the premise was that these news reporters had to be approved by the Rongyao Company, which had invited all the international bigwigs to the gala, before they could enter the venue. However, most companies would allow news reporters to enter such a venue to film an interview. After all, if a big company wanted to hold a gala, wouldn't it be to promote the company's good name? Therefore, Kai Huiling guessed that the news reporters who had been provoked by Yun Jian in the morning would probably be there too. After all, if you offended a news reporter, it was not impossible for the reporter to take a picture of your ugly side and exaggerate it to write a report to be published in the news. It was also because she had heard that Yun Jian had provoked a group of news reporters who wanted to interview her in the morning, and had even broken all the cameras of the group of photographers. Therefore, when Kai Huiling saw Yun Jian, she hurried over. After all, the cameras in 2003 were high-end goods that had to be imported from abroad and were very expensive. It would be strange if those news reporters and photographers did not hold a grudge. Hearing Kai Huiling say that there would be news reporters and photographers coming to the gala to interview the bigwigs, Yun Jian's eyes darkened slightly. Seeing Yun Jian's slightly darkened eyes, Kai Huiling thought that Yun Jian was afraid of the news reporter's revenge. She held her father's hand and did not even give the others a chance to react or speak before she hurriedly continued to speak to Yun Jian. So, you'd better hurry up and find a place to hide, in case those news reporters take revenge on you. Ha ha ha. As Kai Huiling spoke, she threw a contemptuous look at Yun Jian. Wait, this classmate, you said that Yun Jian provoked the news reporters? This is... Jian Ning was stunned when she heard this, and then she spoke in disbelief. As soon as she asked this question, Kai Huiling rushed to explain again, I wasn't there at the time, but I heard that Yun Jian not only refused to be interviewed by a news reporter, but... Pfft! He even smashed the cameraman's camera. In fact, it only took Yun Jian 10 seconds to destroy the cameraman's camera. However, in these 10 seconds, the people present did not even notice how she made her move. After Yun Jian walked past them, the cameras were instantly destroyed. At that time, the group of news reporters was shocked. Kai Huiling was also shocked when she heard about it. In spite of it, Kai Huiling was here to deal with Yun Jian instead of praising her, so what she said was, of course, a negative spin. Reporters have to go in too. Yun Jian frowned again when she heard that. Kai Huiling was sure that Yun Jian was afraid that the reporters would take revenge on her after they entered the venue. Therefore, Kai Huiling's smile deepened. Just as Kai Huiling thought so and smiled confidently, Yun Jian suddenly whipped out her phone and dialed a number in front of everyone. Before the other end of the line could be heard and the call was picked up, she spoke faintly in front of everyone, I'm sorry. Please remember the domain name of this book. Mobile reading website. Chapter 2231. Yun Jian's words rang clearly in everyone's ears. In the ears of Kai Huiling, Jian Ning, Zhang Xiaoyu, and the others present, the meaning of his words was like a tempestuous storm. Everyone's expression changed drastically. If she could say that, it meant that, Was she a senior executive of Rongyao Company? Was she kidding? Rongyao Company was located in Country M and had been established for many years. There was no shortage of elites in Rongyao Company. In Rongyao Company, even an ordinary employee had an annual salary of more than 1 million yuan. Not to mention the senior executives of Rongyao Company. Of course, the higher the annual salary, the higher the requirements. If one wanted to be a senior executive of Rongyao Company, he or she had to be an international bigwig. It was not something an ordinary person could do. Was Yun Jian not bluffing and fabricating something out of nothing with what she said? Even Kai Huiling's father, a middle-aged man with shifty eyes, who was only about 1.6 meters tall and was so thin that his suit couldn't hold the hem of his clothes, couldn't help but stand up and speak in a disdainful tone. Little girl, you're the one who loves to talk nonsense the most among all the little girls I've ever seen. It's the Rongyao Company's internal matter whether they invite reporters or not. You can't be a senior executive of Rongyao Company. It's better for a little girl like you to go back to school and study obediently. Why did you come to such a big event to join in on the fun? Tonight, it's a scene for adults. I really don't know how you bunch of brats managed to sneak in after getting the invitation letter. I have to say that the guards of Rongyao Company are really bad. They actually let some unimportant little kids sneak in. Kai Iliang spoke to Yun Jian and the others in a tone of speaking to them as if they were children. Kai Iliang thought that Yun Jian and the others sneaked in. After all, those who received invitations usually came with their parents. Taking a cursory glance at the scene, he found that except for the members of the martial arts club that Yun Jian had brought in, as well as Jian Ning's group of 5, the rest of the people who were about the same age as Yun Jian were all accompanied by their parents. This wasn't strange. In fact, some young girls were brought to such a big occasion by their parents not only to broaden their horizons, but also to enter a better social circle and get to know better people. Therefore, most of them were accompanied by their parents. Looking around the scene, he really couldn't find anyone like Yun Jian, the members of the martial arts club, or the young girls in their early 20s who came by themselves like Jian Ning and the other 4. Therefore, Kai Ilyang's words were pardonable. Kai Ilyang's words did not give Yunjian any face at all. After hearing Kai Ilyang's words, Yunjian merely narrowed her eyes and didn't say anything. Yunjian did not say anything because, a second later, the lights went out. Another second later, a beautiful neon light flashed. Above a spiral staircase, an enchanting and charming woman appeared. After this enchanting and charming woman appeared at the top of the spiral staircase, all the beautiful neon lights shone on this enchanting and charming woman. This woman in a bright red lace low-cut evening dress was none other than Demon Woman. At that time, Demon Woman was standing at the top of the spiral staircase. She introduced herself and said these words, "Hello, everyone, I am the president of Rongyao Company, Demon Woman. I just received a notice from my subordinates. At the request of my superiors, there will be no news reporters at tonight's party, so I would like to thank all the international bigwigs from all over the world. Please remember the domain name of this book. Mobile version of reading website." Chapter 2232. What the demoness said was just a simple opening. Standing at the top of the spiral staircase, before the demoness said these simple opening, she also emphasized that there would be no news reporters at the ball tonight. This meant that this group of international bigwigs could talk freely in the ball venue. No matter what they said, they didn't need to care, because everything that was said at the ball tonight would not be reported. The demoness just repeated in front of everyone that Yunjian had just called the staff of the Rongyao Company to manage the ball tonight. But when these words were heard, Kai Ilyang felt as if he had heard something shocking. Kai Ilyang just said that Yunjian was not a senior executive of the Rongyao Company. Why would a little girl come here to attend an adult's ball? It would be better for her to go back to school and study. As soon as he said this, he heard the president of the Rongyao Company standing in front of all the international bigwigs and saying these words. This feeling, to Kai Ilyang, was simply, Dad. After Kai Huiling heard the words of the president of the Rongyao Company, the demoness, she fiercely pulled Kai Ilyang's wrist, and her face instantly turned pale. Fortunately, all the lights in the hall were turned off at this moment. All the neon lights shone on the demoness standing at the top of the spiral staircase, so outsiders could not see Kai Huiling's face at this moment. At this moment, Kai Huiling secretly acted coquettishly to Kai Ilyang. Don't panic, don't panic. This is just a coincidence. Kai Ilyang stood in the dark and secretly comforted Kai Huiling. In fact, before coming, Kai Huiling told Kai Ilyang all the things that she had been bullied by Yunjian. When Kai Ilyang heard that his daughter was bullied in front of outsiders, he was so angry that he promised Kai Huiling on the spot that he would help his daughter get back at Yunjian. That was why Kai Huiling saw Yunjian pulling her father, Kai Ilyang, and quickly walking towards her and mocking her. At that time, Kai Ilyang secretly told his daughter, Kai Huiling. Kai Ilyang secretly said this to Kai Huiling. He thought that Yunjian couldn't hear him at all. At that time, Yunjian pretended that she didn't hear Kai Ilyang's words. She lowered her eyes in the dark and didn't say anything. The demoness only said a few words and announced that it was 6:00 and the party had officially begun. Then, she left the stage. Ha! I don't know how you guessed that the reporters wouldn't show up tonight, but some people just can't hide their poverty. I've never attended such a large-scale international party before, so I can't imitate the demeanor of a lady from a wealthy family no matter how I try. Since you have the opportunity to come to such a large-scale event, then watch and learn. The life of the upper class. Kai Huiling's words had always been vicious. This had started from the time Yunjian had stepped on her in front of everyone, causing her to lose face. Hearing Kai Huiling's words, Jian Ning and the others were stunned. Yunjian's cold eyes only moved slightly, but she didn't say anything. As Kai Ilyang watched, he suddenly wanted to help his daughter raise her social status. At this moment, he looked around and suddenly saw an old acquaintance. This old acquaintance was an old friend he met in country Y. When Kai Ilyang saw this, he hurriedly waved at him in English. Hey, Jamie, Jamie. Over here. My daughter wants to talk to you in English. As Kai Iliang said this, he pushed Kai Huiling in front of this old acquaintance of his. As he spoke, Kai Iliang glanced at Yun Jian like a child and urged Kai Huiling, "What's the matter? My daughter has been learning English since elementary school, and she's already at level 9. Quick, Huiling, try to talk to your Uncle Jamie." When Kai Huiling heard this, she hurriedly said a few words to Jamie in front of everyone. Jamie exchanged a few words with Kai Huiling and nodded with a smile, but he was about to leave after a while. When Kai Iliang saw this, he thought that he had gained enough face in front of Yun Jian. He was about to turn around and show off to Yun Jian that his daughter, Kai Huiling, had spoken a few standard everyday words. But suddenly, he heard Yun Jian use extremely fluent English to call out to Jamie, who had originally wanted to find an excuse to turn around and leave because he didn't want to talk to Kai Huiling, whose pronunciation wasn't standard, in front of everyone. "Are you the manager of the International Trade Center, Mr. Jamie? Please remember the domain name of this book. Mobile reading website." Chapter 2233. Jamie, who had originally found an excuse to turn around and leave, suddenly heard Yun Jian's words, and he abruptly stopped in his tracks. Slowly turning around, Jamie glanced sideways at Yun Jian, his eyes revealing a trace of shock. In spite of it, Jamie pushed the shock to the back of his mind and turned around, ignoring Kai Huiling as he flashed a kind smile at Yun Jian and said, "What's the matter with you?" I wonder who this little friend is." Jamie's words were completely different from the tone of impatience when he was talking to Kai Huiling just now. While everyone present was surprised that Yun Jian could speak such perfect English, they didn't forget to look at Jamie's extremely friendly attitude towards Yun Jian. "Tonight's banquet is too shabby. I hope Mr. Jamie can forgive us." Yun Jian pursed her lips and smiled, as she spoke to Jamie. Yun Jian's words made it seem like she was the highest level person in Rongyao Company hosting this banquet. Therefore, the people present who were shocked that Yun Jian could speak such fluent English and knew Mr. Jamie's identity, were suddenly shocked by Yun Jian's tone of voice. Regarding Yun Jian's tone of voice, Mr. Jamie didn't find anything wrong with it. Instead, he smiled generously at Yun Jian, and then said, "You're too kind, I'm already extremely honored to be invited to today's banquet." With this exchange, Mr. Jamie started to talk to Yun Jian. But because the two were communicating in English, Kai Huiling, Jian Ning, and the others present were in a state of half-understanding. But Kai Iliang understood English, and naturally understood English completely. From the moment Yun Jian spoke, he was shocked by Yun Jian's English pronunciation, until now he was flabbergasted. How was this AZ country person learning to communicate in English with a foreigner? This was like two foreigners conversing with each other. If he didn't see this string of English words coming out of Yun Jian's mouth with his own eyes, Kai Iliang wouldn't even believe that Yun Jian could speak a foreign language that was no different from a foreigner's. Until the end, when Jamie blew a kiss to Yun Jian, and said, "Little girl, I really like you," everyone present still hadn't recovered from their shock. This Jamie was clearly someone Kai Iliang knew, but in the end, he actually chatted so happily with Yun Jian. Especially since the person who called out first was Kai Iliang. When everyone present saw this scene, their shocked gazes fiercely froze. Seeing this, Kai Iliang and Kai Huiling's expressions abruptly changed fiercely. At the same time, Kai Iliang was harping on Yun Jian's words when she spoke to Jamie as if she was the host of the event just now and spoke to her sternly. "Little girl, do you think you're the host of tonight's banquet? Do you know the status of the host of tonight's banquet that you're imitating? That's the chairman of Rongyao Company. A top figure that many people want to meet but can't. How can a little kid like you imitate just because you want to?" Kai Iliang's tone was very strict, and every word of his was attacking Yun Jian. Everyone present, even a fool, could hear it. "That's right. My dad is right. Who do you think you are? How dare you imitate the chairman of Rongyao Company? Do you think you just happened to say that a news reporter won't appear tonight, and really think that the chairman of Rongyao Company emphasized this point because of your words? Ha! How is that possible? Arrogant, I'll let you be arrogant. You just performed a slightly outstanding program on New Year's Day, and you really think you're the best. What's so great about being the new president of a martial arts club? Let me tell you, if you know what's good for you, then obediently withdraw from the martial arts club. Otherwise, my dad is my backer, and he will support me. Just as Kai Huiling said this, a group of people suddenly walked in through the entrance of the banquet hall. Kai Huiling wanted to say something, but the discussion of the people standing at the side and their words completely attracted Kai Huiling, Kai Ilyang, Jian Ning, and everyone else's attention. Look, the person walking at the front. It's the boss of Zhe Province's Falcon Hall, Su Zetian. Oh my god. Next to Su Zetian, isn't that the chairman of New Cruise, Zhang Jifan? And behind them, that's, my god. Why is such a force here? That's the snake lizard of the Kosha mercenaries. Please remember the domain name of this book, .com, wonderful book mobile version website, .com. Chapter 2234. Kosha mercenaries. The Kosha mercenaries are here? Oh my god. Don't be shocked. The international bigwigs who are already here, the directors of multinational corporations, international trade groups, business politicians, and so on, are all just small characters. The real bigwigs haven't even appeared tonight. The two people standing at the side were whispering to each other. At that moment, one of the two people standing at the side was putting his lips close to the other person's ear and muttering loudly, as if he was afraid that the other person standing beside him couldn't hear him clearly. At that moment, the surrounding people did indeed hear this person's loud muttering, but at this moment, no one blamed this person for moving closer to the other person's ear and speaking in a loud voice when he should have been whispering softly. Kai Huiling and Kai Ilyang were also attracted by the two people's voices. Immediately, Kai Huiling and Kai Ilyang shut their mouths and didn't say anything. The person who knew the details of tonight's situation moved closer to the other person's ear. Seeing that the surrounding people were looking at him, he became even more smug. His hand made a gesture of whispering softly, but the words that came out of his mouth were as if they were filtered through a loudspeaker, extremely loud and clear throughout the entire venue. I heard that underground organizations like Gu Sha mercenaries will have a lot of people here tonight. Even some international bigwigs like Secret Service agents and assassins will be here. But such bigwigs won't appear openly. Maybe the inconspicuous person walking past you in this banquet hall is a Secret Service agent or a bigwig on the assassin rankings. This person said loudly while making frightening gestures and expressions to his companions. At the same time, he gently turned his body to the side to observe the reactions of the crowd around him. Obviously, after this person said these words, the faces of some of the people from the underground forces instantly darkened. Obviously, they were frightened. This person probably only knew that much, so after saying this, he didn't have anything else to say. At that moment, after hearing this person's words, Kai Huiling gathered her clothes. She was somewhat frightened and reached out to pull her father's sleeve. Then, she said in a trembling voice, "Dad, will Secret Service agents and assassins disguise themselves as ordinary people? Just like the Secret Service agents and assassins in the movies? Will such a terrifying person appear at the banquet?" Kai Ilyang himself had never seen such a scene before. At that time, he was so scared that he was in a daze. His daughter, Kai Huiling, tugged at his sleeve. Kai Ilyang looked straight and paused for 3 seconds before he reacted. A thin layer of sweat appeared on Kai Ilyang's forehead. In order not to let the people around him see his panic, he swallowed hard and then pretended to be calm as he comforted Kai Huiling. "Huiling, Dad will protect you. What was there to be afraid of? What's more, the people who should be afraid should be those who came to the party by themselves without the accompaniment of their parents." As he spoke, Kai Ilyang's gaze flickered to Yun Jian and Jian Ning. Kai Ilyang was obviously referring to Yun Jian and Jian Ning. Hearing this, Yun Jian sneered. "Tonight, you'll have an unforgettable night," Yun Jian suddenly said to Kai Ilyang and Kai Huiling with a sinister smile. Then, Yun Jian waved at Jian Ning and the others and walked to the side. "TSK. What's there to be proud of? You think you're so powerful. After hearing Yun Jian's words, Kai Huiling twitched the corner of her mouth and glanced at Yun Jian from the corner of her eye. However, just as Kai Huiling glanced at Yun Jian's direction coldly, she suddenly caught sight of Zhe Province's Falcon Hall's boss, New Cruise's chairman, Zhang Jifan, and where the Kosha mercenary's elder snake lizard was. Please remember the domain name of this book, .com, Wonderful Book Mobile Version Website, .com. Chapter 2235. Page 1/1, Dad, aren't those the international big shots that the guy mentioned just now? Why did she walk over there? Could it be that she knows those international big shots? Kai Huiling suddenly reached out and grabbed Kai Ilyang. Her eyes froze for a moment, and then her face suddenly changed from fright. In front of Kai Huiling, Kai Ilyang, and everyone else present, Yun Jian walked straight to Zhe Province's Falcon Hall boss Su Zetian, Rongyao Company's chairman Zhang Jifan, and Kosha mercenary Snake Lizard Elder, and said something that Kai Huiling couldn't hear clearly. Then, Su Zetian, Zhang Jifan, and Snake Lizard, these three big shots in the underworld, followed Yun Jian out of the party's back door. What's going on? Not to mention Kai Huiling, even Kai Ilyang was stunned by the scene in front of him. The three of them were all big shots who could command the wind and the clouds. Whether it was strength or influence, they were all top-notch figures. Usually, a small figure like Kai Ilyang could only stand at the bottom and look at the sky from afar. But Yun Jian, what did she say to the three of them just now? The three of them were actually following Yun Jian out of the party's back door obediently. Huiling, don't panic. She must have deliberately found an excuse to call them out of the party's back door. You can't do such a dangerous thing. Negotiating with an international big shot of such strength is life-threatening at any time. Kai Ilyang immediately had his own limited excuse to explain the scene just now. He thought that Yun Jian had found a random excuse to call Snake Lizard and the other two to the party's backdoor garden in order to fight back against him and Kai Huiling. Dad, I know. I'm not as stupid as Yun Jian. She actually dared to behave so atrociously in front of Tiger. She really doesn't want to live anymore. After hearing that, Kai Huiling immediately agreed. She really thought that Yun Jian did it on purpose. Only Jian Ning and the other five narrowed their eyes as they looked at Yun Jian's direction. They felt that since Yun Jian had the ability to call those three big shots out of the party, there must be something different about her. But Jian Ning and the other five didn't know what was different about her. Yun Jian, Snake Lizard and the other two walked out of the party's back door and came back not long after. At that time, Snake Lizard and the other two acted as if they didn't know Yun Jian, and walked past Yun Jian. The venue was spacious, but just as Yun Jian returned from the back door, she saw the members of the martial arts club who had attended the event with her. At that time, beside Mo Bufan were not only the members of the martial arts club, but also Mo Bufan's other three buddies, Brother Kai, Su Jinglong, and Wei Jingxian. Brother Kai was the one who Yun Jian met in the computer lab when she first enrolled in River City University of Electronics and Technology. He was not handsome, but because he was decked out in gold and silver, even giving girls gold necklaces and silver rings as gifts, he was a rich second-generation heir who was sought after by the girls. Su Jinglong and Wei Jingxian were both students of the University of Electronic Science and Technology of China and had excellent family backgrounds. Both of them were also the school hunks of the University of Electronic Science and Technology of China. When they saw Yun Jian, they all greeted her. After greeting Yun Jian, Mo Bufan said, "It will be 7:00 in 10 minutes. We plan to leave first. We saw you when we were walking to the gate, so we thought we'd come over to tell you not to leave." Mo Bufan and the others were very obedient to Yun Jian. Hearing this, Yun Jian nodded. The people of Reverse Emperor would only appear after 7:00. As long as Mo Bufan and the others left before 7:00, there would be no big problem. Leave quickly. Yun Jian said these two simple words. Okay. Hearing this, Mo Bufan nodded and then led the members of the martial arts club to the gate of the party. However, just as Mo Bufan was about to lead the members of the martial arts club to the gate of the party, bang, bang, bang. Suddenly, there were gunshots at the gate of the party. The two big bosses who were about to leave were shot in the forehead by snipers in the sky after they walked out of the party. They were killed on the spot. Seeing this scene, the crowd instantly panicked. At this time, a strong male voice suddenly sounded, with a tone that no one could disobey, but after hearing it, the hearts of everyone present trembled. Young master, don't even think about leaving the banquet. Otherwise, the Reverse Emperor organization will invite you to hell just like the other two. Translator, Henyi Translations Editor, Henyi Translations. Chapter 2236. This string of gunshots, accompanied by this sudden male voice, instantly brought the atmosphere of the scene to its climax. Everyone present was shocked by the two consecutive gunshots at the gate. Their faces suddenly changed. Outside the door that had just been opened and hadn't been closed in time, the two big bosses dressed in gold and silver who were trying to leave the banquet hall were shot between their eyebrows from a high altitude. At this moment, they were lying in a pool of blood, their eyes rolled back, and they died tragically. Ah! Dead. Someone is dead. Someone is dead. The scene immediately became restless, but at this time, the group of businessmen, politicians, and conglomerates were all scared to the point that their bodies reflexively looked for a corner to hide. At this time, Mo Bufan, Hua Ling, Brother Kai, Su Jinglong, and Wei Jingxian of the martial arts club were all shocked. What the hell is going on now? Ah! Dad. What's going on now? Dad, I'm scared. Is this Reverse Emperor organization also an assassin organization like the Kosha mercenaries just now? What should we do? What should we do? At this time, Kai Huiling was holding her father Kai Ilyang's hand tightly and running around like a headless fly. She rushed to a long table and hid. Her whole body was trembling, and she didn't even know who she was. No, I don't know. Shut up. Kai Ilyang was also in a trance. He reached out his trembling hand and covered Kai Huiling's hand, afraid that his whereabouts would be exposed in front of everyone because of Kai Huiling. At this moment, the owner of the strong male voice had already appeared in front of everyone. The owner of the strong male voice was a bald man. He was not good-looking, and there was a deep scar on his neck, which was even deeper than the one on Shui Ying's neck. There was a deep scar on the bald man's neck, which was completely different from the deep scar on Shui Ying's neck. Shui Ying was handsome to begin with. With that handsome appearance, even if there was a deep scar on his neck, other than accentuating his masculinity, it was still acceptable even though it was ugly. However, when the scar on the bald man's neck was exposed, it brought out his ugly side even more. It was as if a magnifying glass was shining on him, showing his ugly side completely in front of everyone. That ugly appearance could not be described with words. You guys can't leave. At this time, the moment she saw the bald man, Yun Jian suddenly said something that Mo Bufan and the others did not understand. What? Then we. When Hua Ling heard this, she suddenly realized why Yun Jian asked them to leave before 7:00. But under the current situation, things were brought forward. Find a corner and hide. Yun Jian suddenly said. Huh? What about you? When Su Jinglong heard Yun Jian's words, he immediately said. With that, Su Jinglong paused. He, who liked to flirt, became serious at this critical moment. At this time, Su Jinglong paused and continued to say to Yun Jian, such matters should be handled by the underworld. This kind of underworld matter should naturally be handled by someone from the underworld. No matter how powerful you are, you're just a college student. Don't worry about our safety. Hurry up and find a corner with us to hide. Hide. When she heard Su Jinglong's words, Yun Jian narrowed her eyes. In the next second, in front of Su Jinglong, she suddenly pulled up the corner of her clothes and took out a silver pistol. Then, she gently tapped the Silver Pistols magazine. When Su Jinglong and Mo Bufan and the others saw this, they suddenly looked terrified. She had already walked toward the bald man. An indifferent voice mixed with a clear and cold tone was transmitted to the ears of everyone present. Please remember the domain name of this book. Mobile version of reading website. Chapter 2237. Yun Jian's words were very arrogant, but she didn't say it to Su Jinglong, Mo Bufan, and the others. At that moment, after the bald man's words spread throughout the hall, no one dared to speak again. After Yun Jian's words were heard, almost everyone in the hall could hear Yun Jian's voice. Her arrogant words made everyone present exclaim in surprise, and it completely terrified Mo Bufan, Su Jinglong, Brother Kai, Wei Jingxian, and the entire martial arts club. Yun Jian's strength was indeed powerful, but it was only limited to the university. The world was so big, and society was like a big dye vat. No matter how powerful Yun Jian was, there would definitely be people who were more powerful than Yun Jian. Especially today's banquet, the people who came were all international bigwigs, and it was said that there were also some global underworld forces. Those were people who killed people without batting an eyelid. Especially the bald man who spoke just now. Before this, he had already killed the two big bosses who were about to leave just now. Just by looking at their attire, one could tell that they were of high status. Yun Jian actually dared to speak at this juncture. Was she tired of living? At this moment, not only were Kai Huiling, Kai Ilyang, and the others who were hiding under the long table shocked, even Mo Bufan and the others were scared half to death. At this time, the bald man slightly tilted his head and looked over. His pair of sharp eyes squinted at Yun Jian. Just as he was about to speak, he was once again interrupted by Yun Jian. The Reverse Emperor organization is really powerful. Today, I really have a new level of respect for you. As soon as he finished speaking, a cloud of doubt once again swept over the heads of everyone present, as if they had understood something. What did Yun Jian mean? Why did it sound like the Reverse Emperor organization appeared just to target her? Who did she think she was? How could she provoke so many people to target her? Kai Huiling hid under the long table and trembled in fear. She even rolled her eyes at Yun Jian coldly. Hee. The Kosha mercenaries formation is not bad either. After hearing this, the bald man sneered and spoke to Yun Jian in the same tone as the leader of the Reverse Emperor organization. Just when the people around seemed to have guessed the identity of Yun Jian and the bald man, and their expressions changed drastically, Yun Jian spoke again to the bald man, causing everyone's jaws to drop. So, it's time for the leader of the Reverse Emperor organization to come out. You, a lackey, should also get lost. After Yun Jian finished speaking, everyone present was stunned. The bald man's expression suddenly changed. At this moment, Yun Jian narrowed her eyes in front of everyone. She stood still, and spoke again. What's wrong? The leader of the Reverse Emperor organization? Or do I have to point you out by name? My good friend, Janine, who has been trying to get close to me since a few months ago on the plane. After Yun Jian spoke, everyone's expression changed even more. Even Jian Ning, and a few others beside her were shocked. After a moment of shock, Jian Ning's lips curled into a smirk. She tore off her human skin mask in front of everyone and strode toward Yun Jian, no longer behaving like an ignorant little girl. As expected of the boss of the Kosha mercenaries. Nothing can escape your eyes. Everyone who saw this scene was so scared that their souls almost flew out of their bodies. This girl was actually the leader of the Reverse Emperor organization? How was this possible? Kai Huiling, who was a distance away, was so scared that her whole body was trembling. Yun Jian was so close to Jian Ning just a moment ago. How did she, before the crowd could react, Yun Jian shifted and met Jian Ning's eyes. Her aura that was not inferior to Jian Ning's was on full display. In the next second, she glanced at Jian Ning, Zhang Xiaoyu, Milfo, and the others who were standing beside her in front of the crowd and said, "What's the matter? Please remember the domain name of this book. Mobile version website. Chapter 2238. So, the reason why Reverse Emperor gathered all the international figures is to recreate the Bloody Night incident to me, slaying God? Everyone was stunned when Yunjian's words rang in their ears. It had to be said that the Bloody Night incident back then was too sensational, so much so that when the international bigwigs present heard the words, Bloody Night incident, they would be stunned for a moment, unable to recover from the terrifying words for a long time. The Bloody Night incident. Back then, slaying God had single-handedly killed the top 20 assassins on the International Secret Agent Assassin ranking. Slaying God single-handedly wiped out the International Secret Agent Assassin ranking. One must know that the top 20 assassins on the International Secret Agent Assassin ranking had been on the list for years. Their ability was on a completely different level compared to the top 20 assassins on the International Secret Agent Assassin ranking today. For example, the abilities of the top 20 assassins on the International Secret Agent Assassin ranking who were killed by slaying God during the Bloody Night incident might need to be multiplied by 3 times on the basis of the current top 20 assassins on the International Secret Agent Assassin ranking to be on par with the 20 assassins back then. One could only imagine slaying God's ability. Even the 20 assassins back then could not defeat her. Hence, it was not difficult to describe the shock all the international bosses felt when they heard about Yunjian's identity. Slaying God? Kai Huiling, who was hiding under the dining table, shuddered when she heard Yunjian's self-introduction. She shivered and repeated the 2 words. Dad. Dad. The name slaying God sounds familiar. This is... Kai Huiling hid under the dining table and asked Kai Iliang in a trembling voice. Shut up if you want to live. Kai Iliang hugged the corner of the table and trembled like a spinning top. He immediately shouted for his daughter to shut up when he heard her question. Kai Huiling was a university student after all. Not every student had heard of slaying God's name. However, after Kai Huiling asked the question, Kai Iliang shouted at her. She trembled slightly and didn't say anything else. Her instincts told her that the name slaying God was not simple. Slaying God, slaying God. Mo Buffon frowned. While he was shocked by Yunjian's words, he did not forget to repeat those words. Why did he find the name, slaying God, familiar? However, he couldn't recall where he had heard those 2 words before. Everyone from the Martial Arts Society, including Brother Kai, Su Jinglong, and Wei Jingxian, were stunned for a few seconds. It took them a while to realize who slaying God was. Suddenly, someone in the crowd shouted at Yunjian, slaying God. You're slaying God. That international. Slaying God, the number 1 on the International Secret Agent ranking. But before he could exclaim out loud, the sound of a silenced pistol rang out. Before the person in the crowd who was looking at Yunjian could finish his exclamation, Jian Ning raised her gun and shot him dead. In Jian Ning's eyes, human lives were like grass. After killing the man, she touched the muzzle of her gun and looked at Yunjian from the corner of her eyes with a cold smirk. The Bloody Night incident was indeed sensational, but everything will become a thing of the past. Slaying God is no exception. And I, Jinyu, am the one who can make you, slaying God, a thing of the past. Jian Ning was the leader of Reverse Emperor. Her code name was Jinyu. Yunjian narrowed her eyes when she heard what Jian Ning said. That depends on whether you're capable of it. Yunjian's deep eyes flickered. After that, she tore the black evening gown she was wearing in front of everyone. Under the black evening gown, Yunjian was wearing a leather jacket and pants. 2 butterfly knives were strapped to her thighs and 2 shiny silver pistols were strapped to her waist. Everyone was stunned by her complete set of equipment. They could not help but think of the term, female secret agent. At that moment, Mo Buffon, who had some impression of the name, slaying God, suddenly remembered the meaning of the name. He pointed at Yunjian, his eyes widening as he exclaimed, "Please remember the domain name of this book." Mobile version of reading website. Chapter 2239. Mo Buffon was about to say something when he suddenly paused. Mo Buffon was not stupid. He immediately remembered the person who wanted to expose Yun Jian's identity but was shot dead by Jian Ning. He immediately shut his mouth. Ha! At this time, Jian Ning, who was about to raise her gun to kill Mo Buffon, put down her hand. She curled her lips into a cold arc and said contemptuously again. Jian Ning had just shot a person. This action had already scared the surrounding people so much that they were trembling non-stop. Kai Huiling was also hugging the corner of the table and trembling. Dead, dead. Someone was dead, but she did not dare to make a sound, let alone say half a word. She was afraid that Jian Ning would see her hiding place and kill her like how she killed the person just now. Just now, Mo Buffon was anxious and shouted those words. He stopped in time. Seeing Jian Ning, who was about to kill him, put down her gun, Mo Buffon lowered his head and let out a sigh of relief. Although they did not hear Yun Jian's true identity from Mo Buffon, the members of the martial arts club standing next to Mo Buffon, as well as Mo Buffon's good brothers, Brother Kai, Su Jinglong, and Wei Jingxian, all let out a sigh of relief. However, just as all the international bigwigs heaved a sigh of relief, they saw Jian Ning's cold red lips curl up. In the next second, after Mo Buffon heaved a sigh of relief, she raised her hand and fired a shot at Mo Buffon's head at the fastest speed possible. This shot carried an absolute momentum. Mo Buffon, who was standing in the distance and thought that he had escaped, narrowed his eyes again. He was completely unable to react in time. Buffon. 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 Mo Buffon's three good brothers, Brother Kai, Su Jinglong, and Wei Jingxian, all shouted out when they saw this. But just as the three of them exclaimed in unison and their expressions changed drastically, the bullet that Jian Ning suddenly fired at Mo Buffon was already 3 meters away from Mo Buffon's head. In less than a second, the bullet would pierce through Mo Buffon's head and kill him in one shot. However, when the bullet was only 10 centimeters away from piercing through Mo Buffon's head, everyone present was about to close their eyes, unwilling to watch the tragedy unfold. The second Mo Buffon thought that he would definitely die here today. Chi! A bullet that was much faster than the bullet Jian Ning had fired directly passed through the eyes of everyone present and swept over from afar at lightning speed. Chi chi chi! A loud sound of light and lightning colliding rang out. In the next second, the bullet that should have pierced through Mo Buffon's head was hit by a bullet that was much faster than the bullet that Jian Ning had fired. At the last moment, it collided with the bullet that Jian Ning had fired. In an instant, the two bullets were neutralized in front of everyone. At this moment, Mo Buffon's eyes suddenly widened. He stared at Yun Jian, who had just saved him with a bullet that did not deviate by half a millimeter. He turned his head and looked over. The shock on Mo Buffon's face was so much that it could not be described with words. At this time, whether it was Mo Buffon, the people from the martial arts club, or Brother Kai, Su Jinglong, and Wei Jingxian, they all maintained the same dumbfounded action. The bullet and the bullet had neutralized each other. Yun Jian, who had fired the bullet that saved his life, had to be very accurate with her marksmanship. Just as everyone was looking at Yun Jian, they saw Yun Jian, who was standing in front of everyone, smile coldly. She narrowed her eyes and stared at Jian Ning with contempt for 2 seconds. In the next second, she put the silver pistol that had saved Mo Buffon back into her waist and provoked Jian Ning in front of everyone. Please remember the domain name of this book. Mobile version of reading website. Chapter 2240. Page 1/1. She was Jian Ning, the leader of Reverse Emperor. Her opponent was slaying God. Although some of them did not know Yun Jian's identity, the crowd around them had heard Yun Jian's words and witnessed Yun Jian's shocking marksmanship earlier. Everyone present felt as if a raging fire had surged up in their hearts. It was the feeling of blood boiling. It was just 8 simple words coming out of Yun Jian's mouth, but they made everyone's blood boil. At the same time, everyone was staring at Yun Jian. Their gazes were fixed on Yunjian as if they wanted to worship Yunjian to a whole new level. Brother Kai, Su Jinglong, Wei Jingxian, and the members of the martial arts society were looking at Yunjian from afar, their blood boiling. Cool. Too cool. Yunjian was too cool. She was simply their idol. Go for it, President. Go for it, President. We support you. You're the best. Although the members of the martial arts society had no idea what was going on, they were cheering Yunjian loudly. Every word that came from the bottom of their hearts made all the international bigwigs look at her. When was slaying God? Her international status was so terrifying that just hearing her name would send shivers down one's spine. She killed people without leaving a trace and treated human lives like grass. Yet, she had won the hearts of so many people. If this was in the past, it would have been completely impossible. At the same time, Yunjian did not hear the cheers of the martial arts society members. She narrowed her eyes and looked at Jian Ning from the side. Humph. How annoying. Slaying God, I'll kill you. I won't leave any of these noisy people alive. Jian Ning frowned when she heard the members of the martial arts society shouting for Yunjian. She scanned the crowd with a murderous gaze before her eyes met Yunjian's. Then let's cut the crap and attack. After Yunjian finished speaking, she suddenly took out a pair of leather gloves made of special materials from her pocket. In front of everyone, she slowly put the leather gloves on her slender and perfect hands. The leather gloves were something that Qin Yu had recently developed. In the past, Qin Yu was the best at developing poisons. There was no poison that she could not develop as long as it was mentioned. Qin Yu, on the other hand, was obsessed with developing all kinds of weapons. For example, the grenade that killed Tiger last time was one of Qin Yu's products. The leather gloves this time were one of them. And the function of these leather gloves was, heh. Then prepare to die. As she watched Yunjian slowly put on the leather gloves on her slender and beautiful hands, Jian Ning suddenly pulled out a small knife and rushed towards Yunjian. At the same time, she held the knife in her hand, her sharp eyes fiercely searching for the vital point. Yunjian, watch out. Mo Bufan could not help but yell when he saw this. However, the crowd saw that Jian Ning was already right in front of Yunjian. She was only 3 steps away and Jian Ning, including the knife in her hand, would be right in front of Yunjian. Yunjian, on the other hand, was still leisurely toying with her leather gloves. Mo Bufan, Brother Kai, and the other members of the martial arts society felt their hearts clench when they saw this. Even Kai Huiling, who was hiding under the corner of the table, was so shocked that her expression changed drastically. Yunjian was still not on guard. Did she have a death wish? Just as the crowd was thinking about this, Jian Ning was already holding the knife and thrusting it towards Yunjian's heart. However, just as the blade was 3 centimeters away from Yunjian's heart, the beautiful hand in the leather glove grabbed Jian Ning's knife, not worried that the sharp blade would cut through the glove and stab her hand. This glove. Jian Ning gasped in horror when she saw this. The crowd's expression changed when they saw this as well. However, Yunjian smirked coldly at Jian Ning in front of the crowd. Of course, my gloves are invulnerable. So now, it's my turn to send you to hell. Translator, Atlas Studios Editor, Atlas Studios. Chapter 2241. Yunjian was only wearing a glove. The glove was invulnerable. Recalling Yunjian's every move, everyone's heart skipped a beat. Who was she? Not only did she have a gun, possessing a terrifying spear technique. More importantly, the leather gloves she was wearing were actually impervious to swords and spears. It was such a bizarre glove. Where did she get it from? Just as everyone was stupefied by the thought, Jian Ning was stunned as well. She stared at Yunjian for 2 seconds before her lips that had curled up in shock earlier calmed down instantly. Invulnerable? Even if you're invulnerable, I'll make sure you die here today. Azure Dragon, Wild Snake, Phoenix, Big Hammer, soaring dragon, iron rat. Go, kill her together. Without slaying God in this world, all of you are no longer a threat. Jian Ning was really going to repeat the Bloody Night incident. However, she was certain that slaying God would not be the winner of the Bloody Night incident this time. Slaying God would definitely die in this second Bloody Night incident. Jian Ning called out the codenames of over 50 people in one go. At that time, when they heard Jian Ning shout, the 50 or so people took off their disguises and pretended to be ordinary people from all walks of life. They were old men with beer bellies, bald rich businessmen. This group of people who were originally just ordinary passers-by, after they took off their disguises, they instantly became the most powerful people in the world. Jian Ning had been prepared for this day. She had gathered the most powerful people in the world, the most powerful people in the assassin and secret agent rankings, and the mythical figures in the international mercenary groups. All of them were gathered here. There were even a few of them whose abilities were on par with the top 20 assassins in the international secret agent rankings during the Bloody Night incident. Perhaps one person's ability was weak. However, when these 50 people were added together, and there were a few whose abilities were on par with the top 20 assassins in the international secret agent rankings during the Bloody Night incident, these people were obviously stronger than the 20 who went against Yun Jian during the Bloody Night incident. Jian Ning guffawed when she saw everyone stepping forward and glaring at Yun Jian. She cackled maniacally and stared at Yun Jian for a while before saying, "You're right, Yun Jian, you're not the only one. Slaying God, I bet you didn't see this coming. After so many years, I will use the Bloody Night incident against you once again. But I won't die in your hands like those idiots from the Bloody Night incident. There are more than 50 of us combined against you. Do you think you're a match for us?" As Jian Ning spoke, he began to grin once again. When Mo Bufan and everyone present heard this, they were so frightened that they couldn't help but break out in cold sweat for Yun Jian. Just when everyone was worried for Yun Jian, they saw that Yun Jian, who should have been frightened, calmly glanced at Jian Ning. Then, without fear, she said coldly, "Oh, is that so?" After that, Yun Jian paused for a moment. Her lips curled into a beautiful red arc as she smiled contemptuously. "So you want to compete with me, who has more experts under his command?" Slaying God had been in hiding for so many years that outsiders had no idea how many people she had under her command. In other words, outsiders had no idea how many of the top international figures were Slaying God's subordinates. Jian Ning also thought that other than Snake, Lizard, Tiger, Leopard, and a few others, there were not many powerful people under Slaying God. That was why Jian Ning dared to gather so many people to go against Yun Jian. After all, if Yun Jian did not have many connections under her, the 50 over people had a high chance of winning against Yun Jian alone. However, what did Yun Jian mean by that? Jian Ning had a bad premonition. Just as Jian Ning's bad feeling subsided, she saw Yun Jian, who was standing in front of Jian Ning, smoothing out the red arc on her face in front of everyone. Then, she stood in front of Mo Bufan, Brother Kai, Su Zhenglonghe, Wei Jingxian, the people from the Martial Arts Society, Kai Huiling, Kai Iliang, and the rest. As everyone held their breaths in shock, she looked at Jian Ning and spoke in a voice as cold as the winter wind. "Tiger, Leopard, Snake, Lizard, Demonis, Diana, Civet, Fox, Ghost Flame, Ghost Lotus, Doya, Charlotte, listen to my command, everyone. Please remember the domain name of this book." Mobile version website. Chapter 2242. Jian Ning, who was brimming with confidence, froze when she heard what Yun Jian said. Jian Ning had gathered more than 50 big shots in the name of Reverse Emperor. Naturally, her ability was top-notch and each of them held a top-notch position in the world. However, there were only a handful of them who could be ranked first in the world. Other than Doya and Charlotte who were at the end, the rest of the people she called out were the most powerful figures in the international rankings. Especially Tiger, Leopard, Snake, Lizard, Mad Dragon, Qingyu, Diana, Ghost Flame, and Guo Lian. almost every one of them had the ability to dominate the entire world. Compared to the 50 international figures that Jian Ning called out, they could easily take on 5 of them at once. These people were on par with the top 20 international secret agent assassins who had dealt with slaying God during the Bloody Night incident. Snake, Lizard and the rest were even a few times more powerful than the top 20 international secret agent assassins who had dealt with slaying God during the Bloody Night incident. With that, the 50 international big shots that Jian Ning had gathered could be easily dealt with by Yunjian's subordinates. Then, with the addition of slaying God who had made a name for herself during the Bloody Night incident, Jian Ning's expression changed at lightning speed. While her face froze, everyone present, including Mo Bufan, Brother Kai, the people from the Martial Arts Society, Kai Huiling, and Kai Iliang who were hiding under the dining table were all stunned. Jian Ning's words earlier had already caused Mo Bufan and everyone else present to be shocked and terrified. Jian Ning had so many subordinates. However, what terrified them even more was, Yun Jian had so many subordinates as well. Moreover, judging from the reactions of the people around, Yun Jian's subordinates were not to be trifled with. Other things aside, that Demoness, wasn't she the president of Rongyao Company? The president of Rongyao Company, Demoness, did not only listen to the president of Rongyao Company. If Demoness was Yun Jian's subordinate, then Yun Jian's identity should be. When the surrounding people thought of this, they were so frightened that their bodies trembled slightly, and they were suddenly startled. Mo Bufan, Brother Kai, and everyone from the Martial Arts Society, including Kai Huiling and Kai Iliang, were so frightened that their faces changed drastically. At the same time, Yun Jian gave an order, and Tiger Leopard, Snake, Lizard, Mad Dragon, and the others who had been hiding around the banquet all walked out from their corners. Each of them had their own weapons in their hands. After listening to Yun Jian's words, Tiger Leopard and the others walked towards Jian Ning's group of over 50 people, looking as if they were about to start a massacre. Seeing this scene, Jian Ning's expression changed greatly. Her pale face suddenly stopped when Tiger, Panther, and the others were about to reach the group of subordinates that Jian Ning had gathered. Almost at the same time, Jian Ning's face changed from pale and powerless to a cold smile. Haha. Slaying God, do you think that's the only trump card I have up my sleeves when I'm here in person today? Jian Ning suddenly laughed sinisterly, then turned to look at Yun Jian. She wiped the sinister smile off her face and took out a yellow Dao talisman that resembled one drawn by a Taoist priest. Looking at Yun Jian, Jian Ning suddenly stopped laughing. She clicked her tongue and looked at Yun Jian with a regretful expression. All right, slaying God, I won't play along with you now that things have come to this. Do you know what this talisman is? This talisman contained the spiritual energy of another world of cultivation. Have you heard of Yulong mainland? I'm sure you haven't heard of it either. How would an earthling like you know of Yulong mainland's existence? No matter how powerful you are on earth, slaying God, you're just an ordinary human. So, let me use Yulong mainland's spiritual power to send you to heaven now. Jian Ning suddenly laughed sinisterly again. As she laughed, she suddenly chanted an incantation at the yellow Dao talisman. While the surrounding people were shocked, doubtful, and confused, they saw the yellow talisman in Jian Ning's hand roll into a big fireball in front of their eyes, as if it was in a fantasy film. It grew bigger and bigger as it rolled. Everyone present could feel the scorching heat of the fireball. Seeing this unimaginable scene, everyone present was shocked to the point that they took a deep breath, and their faces turned pale. What? Is this a sci-fi film? Someone exclaimed when he heard this. Jian Ning's smile widened when she saw this. She was adopted by her godfather since she was young. He came from a place called Yulong mainland. That was the immortal mainland. This yellow Dao talisman was given to her by her godfather. As long as he had it, slaying God would not be a problem. This was Jian Ning's real trump card. Just as the fireball grew bigger, Yun Jian, who was standing in front of Jian Ning, suddenly smirked. Yulong mainland? Jian Ning thought that Yun Jian was panicking when she heard Yun Jian's words. She laughed sinisterly and continued. That's right. Ha ha ha. Slaying God, are you afraid? But it's useless even if you're afraid. Yulong Mainland's spiritual power is enough to destroy you, the most powerful person on earth. As Jian Ning spoke, she was about to exert her strength. However, Yun Jian's eyes darkened as she stood in front of her. A glint flashed across Yun Jian's eyes. In the next second, Jian Ning saw the Dao talisman that was rolling into a fireball extinguish as if a basin of water had been poured over it. Jian Ning was stunned when she saw this. Her sinister smile had yet to fade. However, while Jian Ning was still in shock and before she could react to what was happening, she saw Yun Jian walking slowly toward her. In the next second, Yun Jian's voice that was crisp and clear rang in the air. She spoke to Jian Ning in a manner that made everyone's eyes widen and their jaws drop in bewilderment. Please remember the domain name of this book. The mobile version of the reading website. Chapter 2243. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor, Endless Fantasy Translation, page 1/1. As soon as Yun Jian finished speaking, a strong gust of wind with her at the center seemed to have turned into many sharp blades, sweeping towards Jian Ning. Yun Jian didn't even move her hand, but the sharp blades were like small knives, sweeping towards Jian Ning. Jian Ning, who was still standing at the same spot, widened her eyes, thinking about the meaning of Yun Jian's words. The yellow Dao talisman in her hand, which was left behind by her godfather from Yulong Mainland, was instantly turned into nothing by Yun Jian's eyes. Combined with what Yun Jian said, You're the ruler of Yulong Mainland, the sorcerer goddess. Why haven't I heard my godfather mention this before? Jian Ning was so scared that her face turned pale, and her pupils shrank. She stared at Yun Jian in a daze, shouting these words out loud. However, just as she shouted these words, Jian Ning suddenly felt the sharp blades sweeping towards her in Yun Jian's mind. That gust of wind suddenly turned into sharp blades, giving Jian Ning a feeling that if this gust of wind hit her body, it would be like thousands of blades, piercing her heart with thousands of arrows and killing her on the spot. And that was indeed the case. Yun Jian didn't even raise her hand. She just raised her eyes slightly, and used her spiritual power to turn the surrounding air into a gust of wind, turning it into a sharp blade, intending to kill Jian Ning on the spot. She wanted Jian Ning to die under her spiritual power. After 666 days of soaking in the holy spring, Yun Jian found that her spiritual power was no longer restricted on earth. This surprised Yun Jian, but at the same time, she was able to use it with ease. However, at this moment, the sharp blades transformed from spiritual power almost pierced through Jian Ning's entire body and organs, killing her on the spot. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. A protective screen popped up around Jian Ning, blocking all the sharp blades that Yun Jian had turned the gust of wind into with a bit of thought. Jian Ning, who thought that she was going to die, was shocked when she saw this. She thought to herself, Godfather is here. At this moment, the shock on everyone's faces was beyond words as they watched the scene unfold before them. Oh my God! Wasn't it supposed to be an ordinary evening party tonight? Not only are so many of the most powerful people in the world here, even Slaying God is here. What's going on? How did this turn into a sci-fi movie? Fantasy world? Is this still Earth? Oh my God! Everyone watching at this point, Yun Jian Ning's translation, everyone's Ning, translation, this was beyond what any normal person on Earth could accept. Or it could be said that everything that happened in front of him was not something that an ordinary person could accept. Right then, Jian Ning's godfather, who had blocked the thousands of sharp blades that Yun Jian had conjured with her spiritual power, appeared at the scene. A silhouette flashed across the crowd, and in the next second, a middle-aged man in a suit and leather shoes who looked to be in his 40s appeared before everyone. Yun Jian narrowed her eyes the moment she saw the middle-aged man. The middle-aged man was just about to yell at Yun Jian when he stepped out of the crowd. Jian Ning pointed at Yun Jian and complained to the middle-aged man, Godfather. She broke your spiritual power and tried to kill me. Jian Ning did not take Yun Jian's words seriously. However, Just as Jian Ning thought that her godfather would avenge her, her godfather's expression changed. Suddenly, her godfather's gaze changed when he saw Yun Jian. He took 2 steps toward Yun Jian and knelt down in front of her. He was so shocked that his expression changed as he spoke loudly and respectfully in front of everyone. I'm sorry, but I'm sorry, but I'm sorry. Sorcerer. Sorcerer goddess. Why are you here? Translator, Atlas Studios Editor, Atlas Studios. Chapter 2244. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor, Endless Fantasy Translation, page 1/1. She had thought that her godfather's appearance would help her get back at Yun Jian mercilessly. However, her godfather knelt before Yun Jian in front of everyone and spoke to Yun Jian in such a respectful tone. Jian Ning's eyes widened. Ning, what have you done? Kneel now. Jian Ning's godfather quickly realized what Jian Ning had done to Yun Jian. He was so shocked that beads of sweat rolled down his forehead as he yelled at Jian Ning. Godfather, Jian Ning wanted to refute. Kneel. Jian Ning's godfather yelled. The shout frightened Jian Ning so much that she knelt before Yun Jian on the spot. Jian Ning was raised by her godfather and all her skills were taught by him. Even Reverse Emperor was only established 2 years ago with her godfather's help. It could be said that everything Jian Ning had now was given to her by her godfather. Hence, Jian Ning knelt before Yun Jian in front of everyone after her godfather yelled at her. Reverse Emperor's leader, you. Wild Snake and the rest of the 50 men were shocked when they saw this from afar. Was Reverse Emperor's leader, Qin Yu, or Jian Ning, submitting to slaying God? If that was the case, those of them who had worked with Reverse Emperor's leader, Qin Yu, to kill slaying God, it seems like there are more people who don't know their place in the underworld after I went into hiding for a few years, Yun Jian said before Jian Ning could speak when Wild Snake and the rest were shocked. Wild Snake and the rest who were standing afar were so shocked that their hearts skipped a beat when they heard Yun Jian's words. All of them felt suffocated for a moment. Moreover, the 50 men who wanted to join forces with Jian Ning to kill Yun Jian had a bad feeling about this. One must know what kind of person slaying God, the number 1 on the International Secret Agent Leaderboard, was. She was an international figure who would seek revenge and repay kindness. Now that even Jian Ning, who was the leader, had submitted to slaying God, the rest of them, looks like, it's time to massacre some restless people. Just as these people were shocked by Yun Jian's words, Yun Jian's voice rang out again. In the next breath, Yun Jian's lips, which had been curled into a sneer, suddenly closed. At this moment, her back was facing Mad Snake's party of 50. The words that had decided the fate of Mad Snake's party spread out in the next second, causing Mad Snake's party to feel even more despair. Snake Lizard, Tiger Leopard, Mad Dragon, kill all of these restless people. Leave no one alive. Mad Snake and the others paled when they heard this. They no longer dared question the authenticity of Yun Jian's words. At this time, these people either turned around and rushed to the party's back door or were prepared to fight Snake Lizard and the others with weapons in their hands. Mo Bufan, Brother Kai, Su Jinglong, Wei Jingxian, and the people from the Martial Arts Society who were hiding in the corner, including Kai Huiling and Kai Yilyang, were shocked when they saw this. In an instant, the originally lively party venue turned into hell on earth. Those who were originally on Jian Ning's side fell one after another. Corpses were scattered all over the venue. Mo Bufan, Kai Huiling, and the others who were hiding under the table were so frightened that they broke out in cold sweat. Until the last person collapsed, no one on Yun Jian's side fell. It was then that Yun Jian officially met Jian Ning and Jian Ning's godfather's eyes and said mercilessly in front of everyone, I'm sorry. Now, it's your turn. Upon hearing this, Jian Ning's godfather's eyes turned ruthlessly. When Yun Jian suddenly reached out and took out 2 butterfly knives, Yun Jian's godfather suddenly spoke up to stop her. Wait. Sorcerer God. I have a potion that can allow people from Yulong mainland to come to Earth and use spiritual power without suffering any backlash. I'll give you this prescription. I hope you can let us go. Top reading website, M. Chapter 2245. Whether it was people from Yulong continent, Wanwan continent, or Shenzhou continent, they couldn't use their spiritual power when they came to Earth. Otherwise, they would not be able to make any progress in their cultivation for 100 years. This was an unchanging law since ancient times. According to the rumors, no one had found a way to break it. Of course, Yun Jian had already found a way to break this law. After soaking in the holy spring for 666 days, they could use their spiritual power as they wished on Earth, and there wouldn't be any backlash from not making any progress in their cultivation for 100 years. However, other than Yun Jian and Ce, no one else had been able to enter the holy spring. Therefore, it was impossible to let Lan Su and the others use their spiritual power as they wished on Earth. However, this didn't mean that Yun Jian would give up. She was also looking for a way to let people from the continent use their spiritual power as they wished on Earth. After all, in some aspects, if her people could use their spiritual power on Earth, but that mysterious person's subordinates couldn't, then it would be beneficial for Yun Jian. However, there had never been a way before. Now that Yun Jian's adoptive father stood up and said that he had a potion that could let people from Yulong continent use their spiritual power on Earth without any backlash, Yun Jian was tempted. After receiving the potion from Yun Jian's adoptive father, Yun Jian tested it and confirmed that it was effective. So, Sorcerer God, can you let us go now? We promise that we won't trouble you again. Yun Jian's adoptive father said to Yun Jian after handing over the bottle of potion and the secret formula. Seeing that Yun Jian still didn't let go, Yun Jian's adoptive father raised his finger and promised, I'm the only one who knows this secret formula. I'm the only one who knows about this secret recipe. Now, I'm telling you about it. You don't have to worry, I won't tell anyone else about it. You're the only one who knew this secret formula. Yun Jian narrowed her eyes. Yes. Yun Jian's adoptive father was afraid that Yun Jian wouldn't let him leave with Jian Ning, so he nodded heavily. Yun Jian nodded. After a pause, she continued, get out of my sight immediately. Yes, yes, yes. Jian Ning's godfather heaved a sigh of relief. He then dragged Jian Ning out of the banquet hall. At this time, two people came in from outside the banquet hall. Wasn't the leader of the Blood Dolls, Di Lin, walking at the very front? Di Lin, the leader of the Blood Dolls, was dressed in black. He always wore his black hoodie, and this time was no exception. That fair-skinned face was revealed under the black hoodie. He was so handsome that it was unbelievably handsome. Behind Di Lin was Leng Mei, the Blood Doll's #1 expert. Leng Mei followed closely behind Di Lin, walking towards Yun Jian. It was only when the two of them arrived in front of Yun Jian that Leng Mei spoke to Yun Jian. Sister Jian, I, Blood Doll, have wiped out the remaining forces of Reverse Emperor. The organization is just an empty shell now. Yun Jian nodded. It was a piece of cake for her to send Blood Doll to wipe out the remaining forces of Reverse Emperor. When they heard that Reverse Emperor was wiped out, all the international bosses around them gasped. In the past 2 years, Reverse Emperor had developed into an assassin organization that was almost on par with the Kosha mercenaries and An group. Slaying God, on the other hand, had only used one banquet to develop Reverse Emperor into an organization that was almost on par with the Kosha mercenaries. In just one night, it was wiped out, just like that. While everyone gasped, they saw Yun Jian, who stood in front of the crowd, cast a sidelong glance at them. She then turned her gaze to the international bosses, businessmen, and politicians, and spoke again while they were still contemplating her power. All of you have 2 choices now. 1. Die. Please remember the domain name of this book. Mobile version website. Chapter 2246. They would either die or submit to her. Submitting to her meant completely submitting to slaying God. Therefore, everyone was stunned for a second when they heard Yun Jian's words. A second later, everyone made their decision. Unconditional submission. They would be Yun Jian's subordinates. The combined ability and international influence of all the international bosses at the gala would be an indescribably powerful backer. Yun Jian had massacred so many top international figures and recruited almost all of them under her wing. Then, there would be no one in this world who could rival her. Even so, these people chose to submit to Yun Jian unconditionally. It was because Yun Jian was none other than Slaying God, the #1 secret agent on the International Secret Agent Leaderboard. Slaying God, the world's #1 powerhouse who struck fear in people's hearts. After everyone had chosen to submit, Yun Jian gestured for snake, lizard, tiger, leopard, and snake. Lizard to sign the submission contract with these international bosses. She had come prepared. After everything was settled, Yun Jian walked to the gala's entrance with Qin Yu and the rest escorting her. She had no intention of erasing Mo Bufan and the rest's memories, nor did she intend to erase Kai Huiling and the rest's. Especially Kai Huiling, she was not worth spending a 3-hour bottle of amnesia serum to erase her memory. Yun Jian walked out the door. Just as Yun Jian was about to step out of the door, Mo Bufan and the rest caught up to her. Yun Jian, where are you going? Mo Bufan asked Yun Jian when he caught up with the rest of them. Once he asked, Yun Jian only left her silhouette for Mo Bufan to wait. She uttered 2 simple words that were enough to stun Mo Bufan and the rest before walking out the door. Murder. On the smooth roads of River City. Jian Ning and her godfather had finally left River City's downtown area and arrived at the suburbs. Jian Ning's godfather brought her to the airport. He wanted to bring her back to Yulong mainland. As long as they returned to Yulong mainland and sought refuge with that lord, they would not have to be afraid of the sorcerer goddess. Otherwise, according to the sorcerer god's character, he would never let them go. At this time, Jian Ning and Jian Ning's adoptive father had already arrived at a desolate suburb. Jian Ning's adoptive father was now spinning the steering wheel in the strong wind and racing at high speed. Father, where are we going? Jian Ning couldn't help but ask when she saw her godfather driving the sports car so anxiously. Run. Run as far as you can. We have to run. Jian Ning's foster father was sweating profusely as he focused on driving. However, as soon as their conversation ended, the sports car that Jian Ning's godfather was driving at a speed dozens of times faster than an ordinary sports car suddenly came to a stop. The car was directly braked by a powerful spiritual force. The two of them were so scared that their faces changed drastically. This was a powerful force. He was definitely above the sorcerer god. Who was it? His spiritual power was far above that of the sorcerer god. And such a character had also come to Earth. Just as the two of them were so frightened that their faces changed drastically, a tall and handsome man suddenly tore open the space in front of the sports car they were in. He directly descended from the air and slowly landed on the ground. Looking at this handsome man who angered both humans and gods, even Jian Ning couldn't help but be fascinated by him. Jian Ning's godfather frowned fiercely. He sat in the car and cupped his fists in front of this handsome man who made people forget to breathe. I don't know how I offended you. I hope you can forgive me. Let me and my daughter leave this place. Jian Ning's godfather's words made the man who suddenly descended from midair like a god frown slightly. The next second, this handsome man stretched out his hand. A second before he directly used his spiritual power to blast the sports car and the two people in the car into meat paste. He left a cold and mellow sentence that was enough to make people forget to breathe. Please remember the domain name of this book. Mobile version of reading website. Chapter 2247. As soon as the handsome man spoke, the two people in the sports car were blasted into a puddle of blood along with the car before they could even step out of the car. Not even their bones could be found. They had died on the spot just like that. If an ordinary person was standing here at this moment and saw this inconceivable scene, they would probably cry out in shock. It was a scene that defied all logic. When Yun Jian arrived, this was what she saw. The sports car in which Jian Ning and Jian Ning's adoptive father were sitting was suddenly left on the spot. The whole car was twisted like a rope. Just looking at it and imagining that there used to be people in the car was enough to make one tremble with fear. What was even more frightening was that the entire body of the sports car had been twisted like a rope, and bright red blood was flowing out of it. It looked extremely strange. Jian Ning and Jian Ning's godfather were already dead before she could come over. Yun Jian narrowed her eyes at the sight. Just as Yun Jian was about to go to the deformed sports car to check the bodies of Jian Ning and her godfather with her squinted eyes, a familiar masculine voice rang behind her. Xiao Jian. Yun Jian's slightly raised brows smoothed out at the sound of the masculine voice. She knew who was responsible for Jian Ning and her godfather's deaths. After the magnetic voice rang behind her, Yun Jian was pulled into a familiar embrace in less than a second. Feeling the warmth of the embrace, she relaxed and turned her back to him. Did you kill them? Yun Jian asked softly as she leaned against Siyi's chest. At that time, Siyi's hands had slipped from her waist naughtily to latch onto her fair and delicate hands as he replied curtly with a smile, "You're right." Yun Jian's eyes dimmed at his reply, her red eyes quivering. I wanted to interrogate them to see if they were the mysterious person's subordinates. Yun Jian did not think that Jian Ning's godfather was just an ordinary immortal cultivator from Yulong mainland. That was why Yun Jian did not kill Jian Ning and her godfather at the gala. Yun Jian was never one to leave the root of the problem untouched. Whether Jian Ning and her godfather were truly remorseful or not, Reverse Emperor's existence was a foregone conclusion. And as the leader of Reverse Emperor, Jian Ning and her adoptive father, who founded Reverse Emperor, had to die. That man is indeed the mysterious person's subordinate, Ce answered when Yun Jian asked in confusion. There was a pause after that before Ce spoke again. Before he died, he said that he could find the mysterious person's hideout in Death Island that leads to thousands of continents. Jian Ning's godfather had put up a struggle before he died, and in the process, he had revealed a huge secret to Ce. In a sea area called Death Island in the Indian Ocean, there was a place that led directly to the hiding place of the mysterious man. Jian Ning's godfather had revealed this before he died, and Ce could tell that he was not lying. This was because when a person who was afraid of death was faced with the fear of death, in order to survive, even if it was a monstrous secret, it was possible for him to reveal it. What was more, Jian Ning's godfather was not a person who was not afraid of death. This Death Island was located on an island in the Indian Ocean. Why was the island called the Island of Death? It was because the Island of Death was a legendary island. It was said that the Death Island would only appear on the surface of the Indian Ocean at dawn. There would be thick smoke around the Death Island, which looked quite beautiful. Pleasure boats would be attracted by the smoke and sail to the shore of the Death Island. Legend has it that after sailing to the shore of the Death Island, the boats that were attracted to it would no longer be able to find their way back. Until they died, they would be trapped on the Death Island. That was the origin of the name of the Death Island. Of course, it was just a beautiful legend. But later on, someone came forward to prove that the Death Island was real. As early as 20 years ago, there was an old pirate who was drifting in the Indian Ocean with a group of his pirate brothers. According to his recollection, he and his group of pirate brothers accidentally entered Death Island. The old pirate did not say what happened on the Death Island. People only knew that he had been to the Death Island and somehow became the first person to leave the Death Island alive. When he was found, the old pirate kept shaking his head and repeating, "Dead, dead, all dead. Death Island, all dead." Yes, the old pirate was crazy. 20 years ago, this incident caused a stir in the world. Since then, people had a deeper understanding of the Death Island in the Indian Ocean. Yun Jian narrowed her eyes when she heard that they could find the hideout of the Death Island. If Jian Ning and her godfather were the mysterious person's subordinates, then it would explain why Reverse Emperor was able to deal with the Kosha mercenaries. Everything that had happened in his previous life, including the times when he was the sorcerer god and the times when he was targeted after his rebirth. She, Yun Jian, was not a person who was willing to defend. The mysterious person had been arrogant for so long, and it was time for her, Yun Jian, to fight back. You want to go to the Death Island? Yun Jian looked up and asked Ce. Yes, he said in a muffled voice. I'll go with you, Yun Jian said firmly. After that, she held Ce's slender hand and said solemnly, I'm sorry, but I'm sorry. If you die, I'll follow you to the afterlife in life and death. Please remember the domain name of this book. Mobile version website. Chapter 2248. Before this, they didn't make solemn vows of undying love. They didn't say sweet nothings and swear that they would live a peaceful life together. They didn't even make a vow of loving each other for the rest of their lives. All they said was, if you live, I'll live with you. If you die, I'll die with you. They would live and die together. Any passionate declaration of love couldn't compare to a sentence like, if you die, I'll die with you. However, in this world, if there was someone who could live and die with you, then you must cherish him because there was no one else in this world who loved you more than him. Yun Jian did not know how to talk about love, much less say simple words like, I love you, that could be uttered easily. However, just because she didn't know how to say sweet nothings, it didn't mean that Yun Jian didn't love him. However, her love for Ce was from the bottom of her heart. It wasn't a feeling that could be described with just, I love you. It was a love that could make her abandon everything and be ready to go to hell with him at any time. After Ce heard Yun Jian's words, he was completely stunned. After being stunned for a while, he didn't say anything else. Instead, he hugged her even tighter from behind. He didn't say anything else. In the end, Ce decided to head to Death Island 7 days later. Yun Jian also prepared to go with him 7 days later. Of course, whether or not they could find Death Island that was shrouded in fog all year round was another matter. However, this time, Yun Jian was going with Ce with the determination to die. For this reason, Yun Jian even took a year off from university. Because of new cruise's backing, Yun Jian took a year off from school and the university immediately approved. On this day, Yun Jian came out of the principal's office. When she arrived at the school gate, Mo Bufan and the other members of the martial arts society heard the news and all ran to the school gate to send Yun Jian off. Yun Jian, although I don't know why you suddenly took a break from school, I'll keep the position of president of the martial arts society for you. Because only you are fit to be the president of the martial arts society. Mo Bufan and the others sent Yun Jian to the school gate. Then, Mo Bufan spoke up and solemnly said these words to Yun Jian. Only you can be the president of the martial arts society. This was the recognition of Yun Jian by everyone in the martial arts society. If I can come back alive, I must personally hear the news of your victory in the martial arts competition. Don't let me down. Yun Jian didn't say anything, only leaving this sentence. This sentence made the members of the martial arts club, who did not know what Yun Jian was going to do, even more worried. But at this moment, no one asked. Yun Jian was not simple. At the same time, Yun Jian also had her own world. At that time, the members of the martial arts society only unanimously promised Yun Jian that they would definitely get the first place in this martial arts competition. Yun Jian left the Jianghu University of Electronic Science and Technology of China under the warm send-off of the martial arts club. There were still 7 days left before the date she had agreed to go to Death Island with Ce. In these 7 days, Yun Jian continued to instruct the members of the Kosha mercenaries before returning to Longmen City. After returning to Longmen City, the first place Yun Jian went to was the prison. Now that 2 years had passed, Duan Li and Duanya's father, Duan Shi, who had been imprisoned for domestic violence, was about to be released. Yun Jian came to the prison and applied for the right to visit Duan Shi. At that time, Yun Jian was about to enter the prison to visit Duan Shi and mention some important matters to him. For example, to ensure that Duan Shi would not cause trouble for Duan Li and Duanya after he was released. Just as Yun Jian was about to enter the prison after getting permission, she saw a shadow outside the police station. She wanted to go around the figure and walk past him, but she was stopped. Yun Jian. It's you. The person who called out to Yun Jian was none other than Yun Jian's classmate back in Xinjiang town, Qingqing. Please remember the domain name of this book. Mobile reading website. Chapter 2249. Yun Jian did not stay long in Xinjiang town. She had gone to Longmen City not long after she was reborn in the town. The person who had studied in Xinjiang town for close to 3 years was not her, but the original owner of her body. However, Yun Jian could still find memories of Yi Qingqing in the original owner's memory. In her memory, this girl named Yi Qingqing was a very ordinary student in Xinjiang town. She was also a good student in the teacher's impression. She usually listened to the teachers obediently and dressed elegantly. She was a typical student with good grades and was a model student in the hearts of the teachers and parents. However, the current Yi Qingqing was a little different from the model student who was obedient and had good grades in the original owner's memory. At that time, Yi Qingqing was wearing a more Western-style clothes. Her upper body was a button-up striped shirt, which was tight on her body, and her lower body was a short black skirt. She looked like a lady from the underworld. This was a stark contrast to the obedient Yi Qingqing who didn't even dare to speak loudly in school and didn't even dare to stand up when the teacher called her name in class. People changed. No matter how obedient a person was when they were young, they would change if they encountered certain circumstances when they grew up. Compared to the innocent and naive Yi Qingqing in junior high, the current Yi Qingqing looked more charming and mature. There was also an indescribable sense of vicissitudes. Yun Jian's eyes narrowed when she saw Dai Qingqing, but she gave a nonchalant reply. Dai Qingqing grinned at Yun Jian with pursed lips. What a coincidence that we can meet here. There was a hint of vicissitudes and desolation in the smile of an old friend who had met with an unforeseen event. Right, Yun Jian, why are you here? Don't you need to go to school? Dai Qingqing asked after she was done with her question. Yun Jian was supposed to be in her senior year, but she skipped a grade and was now in her first year. After Dai Qingqing asked, Yun Jian replied, I came back for something. She didn't say anything more. After listening to Yun Jian's words, Dai Qingqing didn't feel that it was inappropriate. She smiled at Yun Jian and then began to talk about her own matters in detail. I dropped out of high school and came to Longmen City to work alone. I met my boyfriend at the place where I worked. Dai Qingqing's boyfriend was very good to her. Her boyfriend had taken care of her for 2 years when she was working, taking care of her every need. Later, Dai Qingqing was moved, so she agreed to have a real relationship with him. However, the good times did not last long. 2 days ago, Dai Qingqing and her boyfriend got off work and met a few hooligans. Those hooligans saw that Dai Qingqing was good-looking and wanted to rape Dai Qingqing in front of her boyfriend. In the end, Dai Qingqing's boyfriend accidentally stabbed one of the hooligans to death, thus protecting Dai Qingqing's innocence. At the mention of this, Dai Qingqing's eyes teared up. He went to jail because of me. The court took into account that he didn't kill on purpose and that it was self-defense, so he's going to jail for 10 years. He went to jail because of me. I'll always be by his side. Even if it's 20 years, I'll wait for him to get out. It was only then that Yun Jian noticed the lunchbox in Dai Qingqing's hand. She knew without asking that Dai Qingqing must be here to deliver food to her boyfriend. Yun Jian and Dai Qingqing went to the prison to visit Duanling Tian. Dai Qingqing even invited Yun Jian to a nearby milk tea shop for a small gathering after they were done visiting. Yun Jian agreed. The door of Duanshi's prison opened and Yun Jian walked in. Duanshi looked much more refreshed than before. After 2 years of not seeing him, Duanshi, who was no longer drinking, looked more like a human after 2 years of rehabilitation in prison. Yun Jian's sudden entrance startled Duanshi. He glared at Yun Jian and exclaimed loudly. Please remember the domain name of this book. Mobile version website. You're tuning into the Biyao's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.